Hello, everyone, and welcome to Answer the Call. We have some interest in the show this morning, so if you guys are watching on Twitch, we're starting much earlier than I had originally anticipated. Partly because the two people who are in the calls, I think I'm going to have good conversation with, and I think it'll make for a good show rather than not, right? So, as you can see, we're doing a call-in show, and the topic is how valuable is our feedback? And for me, I think it's twofold. I think it can be very valuable. And somebody in chat mentioned earlier that, what if a designer has like a block about how to do things? And there is some golden feedback where somebody might say something that is a really good idea and that could, expand their horizon on how to design something or what would be cool, what would be fun, right? I agree with that, and I also somewhat disagree with that because I think that could happen, but I don't think we've had an ATC about how, like, what is good feedback in the first place. At the very least, I've talked about it on my streams, and by talking to other game developers who have worked at Star Citizen and have experienced what it's like to be a part of the feedback thread at Star Citizen, and they don't work there anymore, so they work at other game companies as well. What is valuable about feedback from a player is simply this. This is fun, and why it's fun. This is not fun, and why it's not fun. And that as a game designer, you do your job from there, right? But often what happens in Star Citizen is because we're brought into the game's development, we all think we're game designers, and we start doing their job for them, where it's like, this is how it should be. And it's like, no, not necessarily. I think you can give your opinions from other games and say, this was fun in another game, and this is why, and maybe that could be fun here. But then, when I've had conversations with designers from Star Citizen about things like that, there's 1,000 reasons why it couldn't work, right? That's literally what their job is to figure out all the loopholes and things, right? Now, feedback now is very difficult to do. I posted a video on mining recently that people loved. But what was the main point in that video? Is mining has a lot of problems, specifically around the mole and multi-crew mining. But there's a lot of other problems that are all fixed by the game just being developed. And in the last 2 to 3 years, a lot of the game has not been developed at all. It's just we've been treading above water. COVID, whatever happened with server meshing, we talked a little bit about that during the stream. Don't know what happened there, but it was coming out in a year, and then it's been 3 years, right? And now it seems like Montreal is working on it when the UK was. So who knows what's going on there, right? But without being in an MMO-like environment, how do you give feedback on PvP? How do you give feedback on FPS? How do you give feedback on even PvE mechanics? How do you give feedback on an economy that doesn't exist? Like, anything that touches the economy, this is fun, this is not fun. Well, a lot of the reasons why it's not fun is because you don't have that dynamic economy that's supposed to be in Star Citizen. A lot of the reasons why PvP and PvE isn't fun is because there's no players in the server. You never come across people. Why are planets not that interesting? Because there's nobody there, right? Like, there's all this feedback that everybody knows the solution for, and the solution is just developing the game. So I do question how valuable our feedback is, simply because of that. And I don't think it's very valuable right now, but CIG touts how valuable it really is. And I somewhat wonder, yes, I imagine them hearing exactly in the moment how we experienced the thing that they worked on. I imagine that's incredibly valuable. Like, oh, they didn't get it. Oh, they did. Value, right? But when it comes down to actual feedback threads and things like that, how am I writing these posts in like when mining doesn't work, right? It's a weird thing, you know, like the whole groundwork of the video game basically doesn't exist yet. So you're giving feedback on features that essentially what feedback is in Star Citizen right now is, yes, I was able to loot a container. No, I was not able to loot a container. Yes, I was able to use medical. No, I was not able to use medical. Right? It worked, it didn't work. Not it was fun, it wasn't fun. Essentially just bug fixing, right? But without further ado, we'll bring in our first caller, Virgil. Virgil, what's up, man? We're going to keep you on the full screen for a moment because I thought I was set up, but I'm not entirely.
Okay.
What's up?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. So what do you think about all this?
Look, I actually have a couple points on this, and you know, I think I'll just refer to my notes, but I think at
he's
the
got
core,
notes.
the problem. Yeah, I always bring notes to this, but I think at the core, the problem, like a lot of it lies with Spectrum, and I remember like giving Zyla this feedback. Like, I think Spectrum itself is inherently flawed, mainly because of the way like the upvoting system works, right? Like, if players don't approve of a thread or a reply, we just hammer Picards at it, but there's no downvoting, and there's no vote decay on posts and replies.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when we do Star Citizen Live, for example, it's the first people that reply to the thread the soonest that get their questions upvoted the most and get their questions in. And so the problem is if you come into that thread 2 days late, you're never going to get to the top 20 replies at all because you've missed the window. And people can't downvote poor questions, right? So I think a lot of the problem with the feedback is how broken or how Spectrum really doesn't fit into that. So I definitely think they got like a lot to work with on Spectrum, but it's also like, you know, the policy and how they work as a company. And I think that the problem is too is like, I mean, you know me, right? I'm like super passionate about the game, and like specifically the loops that I interact with. But the problem is too is like, and I'm sure people in your chat will notice in the YouTube comment sections too. It's like you don't know when your feedback was valuable. Like,
yes.
CIG don't let us know when. Oh, hey, he brought up a great idea. Like, we don't get that pat on the back, you know. And I think there's just like there's a lot to learn from like other companies and how they handle feedback. And we just have to trust that, you know, we throw what we think into the void and hope that someone read it, but we don't know if they did. Hope that someone cared. And even if they did care and if they did like it, we got no idea. Or even if it doesn't work with what they've got planned, you know, they're not coming out and telling us that.
Yeah, can we pause there for a moment? Because I think that that's a really good... I think that's a really, really good point. Is I also think that like, well, just to piggyback off of that point a little bit, and then maybe we can come back to it, is with that, with them not telling us essentially what is good feedback by responding to it or by I guess responding to it and acting on it or saying, hey, we heard that we like that idea. Like sometimes you hear it on a Star Citizen Live where like, oh yeah, I saw that question, or oh yeah, I saw them say that. But but they never like took the 2 minutes out to reply in a thread, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I was even heard. And then sometimes you're heard and it was valuable and they never gave the entire, not just you, the person who gave the feedback, but the entire community that's paying attention, what is good feedback and what was valuable, why. So you're not even teaching us what you're looking for, essentially, right? And I think that that's like mega important is that back and forth. And maybe that's a community management thing, because I don't think the devs should really be sitting there reading threads. Obviously, it's a team that grabs that stuff and gives it to the relevant developer. And I think that part of that team's job should be probably replying and saying, hey, we passed this on, and they do seem to really like it or something, you know? And sometimes that happens. I've experienced that. But I doubt that happens to your average Star Citizen backer.
It's like we don't know when they appreciate, like, you know me, I think I messaged you about this the other day. It's like sometimes you and me will be, you know, not recommending, but like hoping something would come, or we'd be like, oh, like we really want this to come, or this would make the game feel a lot better, or we'd love this type of content. And then I'm pretty sure I messaged you this, but like it comes true like a couple months later. A good example of that was if you go back through our ATCs, I don't know which one it was that I was on the last one, but we were talking about what if the best weapons became rare in bunkers. Well, no one's looted the FS9 or the railgun since we spoke about that on the podcast. It's become rare. Like, was that because, you know, and I'm not saying we influenced it or anything, but did someone like that idea? You know, like, because we literally were talking, that could have been from this podcast. And you and your viewers would have loved to have known if, you know, the developer that's head of the loot tables, you know, agreed. You know, and then we'd get that kind of feedback. And I think that would be extremely rewarding as backers and, you know, make us feel more inclusive when they do give us that pat on the back, if what they heard or read, you know, actually helped them and influenced the decision. Right? Because that's the thing, you know, we're all play testers, you know, and they've got a couple thousand QA players that they don't even have to pay. And it would be nice, you know, to I don't know, feel heard a bit, I guess. I think that they're definitely reading it, and I think that specifically Spectrum, like I know that, you know, a lot of influence or criticism, you know, it has to go through the Spectrum channels. But yeah, I think getting that pat on the back would, you know, reward the community and us as backers a lot more. But yeah, like
I don't know how important that is really. Like, do we really need the pat on the back, or do we need, like, I don't need it, and I don't think you care that much either about the validation of things. I think we just want the game to be better, and I just want it. I don't need the pat on the back. I just need to know that I was heard, because I just don't think that if you don't know that somebody was listening, you eventually are going to stop talking.
Yeah, you give up trying to do feedback. I mean, that's what I've done. Like, you know, like when they do like flight model decisions or something like that, and then I get frustrated with what the result is. Yeah, like I've given up plenty of times, especially with desync, Mike. Like, you know how much I was tweeting, making threads on Spectrum, like, you know, using all the different boards and all that stuff to, you know, try and let people know that the game, you know, had this huge delay. And, you know, even using your Discord and talking to Jake on it and stuff, like, how did we know that they were even listening to us, you know? And I could have given up the whole fun. Like, yeah, no problem.
I think it's very clear that they weren't for a long time, and until you just start yelling, then eventually they're like, oh, look, we just had this 2-second delay in there, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's like they knew it was there, too, because they're the ones who put it there. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
it was
just like... and just if we just got told, like, hey, we hear you, you know, these are some great points and we're going to bring them up at our next meeting or something like that. We'll bring these points up at our combat summit. Something like that would go a long way, I think, for sure.
Yeah. It's like, because some people were saying in chat, like, is that like, do we just need to are you like massaging your ego because you want your feedback not only heard, but like, oh, this was good feedback, oh, pat on the back. Like, I don't think that that's really what you were trying to say, and that's why, like, I came back around to this.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't even like we wouldn't even mind if we were told, "Hey, that's not compatible with Squadron 42," or like we don't believe in that because of this. That'd be
Yeah.
fine. Even just feeling like we're contributing at all would help because ultimately, like, I'm a I'm a big believer in like people who know the games the most are the players that play it the most. Like,
Yeah.
and that's why you see some of the really passionate players actually go over there and start working at CIG and stuff like Bayor and all those guys, for example. I mean, Jake was a player before, so
Yeah,
as
Ari
well. But
Neo just joined the he's like from the Spanish community.
yeah,
He
I think I've seen him on Twitter.
yeah, he just joined the player experience team, right? So all
Hmm.
backers there that understand somewhat where we're coming from, I think. So that'll be good. But
How
the
do
yeah,
you? Here's a question I got for you too. The player experience guys, do you feel like we should have closer relationships with them? Because it's funny, like, out of all the relationships with CIG that I have, I don't think any of them are with the player experience guys. And those are the guys I would expect to be, like, in the trenches, kind of shoulder to shoulder with us, right? But, I think
the
Waka in player experience? I thought he
maybe
was. I might be wrong.
the most prominent one for your side of the game is K Winter.
Hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
that's that
Oh, God, yeah.
so
That
that's
guy's
your guy.
amazing.
That's your guy.
Yeah.
That's essentially
Oh, that
so
is my guy, dude.
yeah, so basically how I understand it is because based off of that ISC that they did is that they all kind of have their specialty. But the one guy that had the mining specialty, has he ever come and talked to me? No, but
Yeah, and he should be, right? Like, if you
maybe,
ask
maybe
me,
not.
sorry.
I argue no because again, I think that most of the problems with mining are fixed by them just making the damn game uh aside from mining, right? Like the actual action of mining, raising and lowering your power. I think that that's relatively fun and could be challenging if they did it different, like not differently, but it could be challenging. And all the mining really needs is a reason to do it, and then obviously some minor changes that are outside of the team that designed mining. So there's other teams that need to work on mining, which is essentially the economy team, whoever distributes ore across a planet, and
Hmm.
server meshing and persistence, right? Like all things outside of mining are actually what would make mining more interesting and more fun. And that was like my whole argument about this video. And then it kind of spurred this answer the call is like, dude, how do you give feedback on a game that you're playing with like 50 players in a server? It's not Star, you're not playing Star Citizen. None of us are.
Yep.
This is not the game that
Yeah.
we bought. This is and that's okay. It doesn't have to be right now, but it's difficult to see what the future is supposed to look like, and is this fun? Is this not fun because the game's not done, or is this not fun because it's not fun? It's very difficult to tell sometimes, right? Every interaction in PvP is not what it should be in the future. It should be much more dense, many more players fighting each other, fighting over actual things and places and important stuff, right? Like none of that exists. So it's very like, I think for you have one of the few gameplay loops to give feedback on, because you have
Yep.
a team dedicated to the experience of that. Whereas most of the people who are interested in other careers in the game do not have a team dedicated to that specific career. So, and that specific experience, they just develop it, and then we go, yeah, it worked, I guess, and it wasn't very fun, but I guess I'll keep being patient. That's where we are for now.
Hmm. This is why I envy like Escape from Tarkov so much, is that like the relationship that the community has with Nikita is so good. And like I desperately wish that Chris was like that too. Like you felt like he was in the trenches, going on people's podcasts, stopping by streams, like actually in tune with like what it's like playing the game and in the PU. Like, cause man, you watch like you watch all these podcasts with like Nikita on them, just talking like shooting the shit with content creators and players. It's so good, but with Chris, we have this giant disconnect, and I can tell you right now, like nothing gets green lit or nothing comes into the game that isn't getting a thumbs up from Chris. So, he's so heavily involved in the decision making, and there's such a disconnect with him. Like, I think the only time I've even heard of him playing the game, like, was that time that Sandy brought it up and the daughters were frustrated or whatever. But yeah, I find myself like really envious of Nikita's relationship with the EFT community, and then in comparison ours with Chris, or even ours with like CIG's management. I don't like, aside from like a couple players, a couple developers that used to be players and now work there, I don't get the sense that many of them play the game. Like, do you? Like actually playing the
No.
PU. I'm not talking like offline in a test mode. I mean like as players inside the game.
No, but would like you and a small I wouldn't expect them to. Like, how do you play this game? It's not playable. It's not a game. It's not something it's there are some people that do find fun in it, and I don't want to take away from that. But this isn't something that you plop down on a Saturday night and like, this is what I'm going to spend my weekend doing. Like, there are very few people that have the willpower to do that. So this is the problem with this entire experience. The issue with it is they have the game released for us to play it, but it's not playable. It is playable, quote unquote, but it's not what you would put out there as like, hey guys, check out what we're doing, right? It's more, check out this incredibly large scale star system with huge planets that we put in. That's what we're checking out. We're not checking out the game and the way it works. Like, I don't even think you can argue they're not even saying, hey guys, check out our absolutely incredible combat and flight mechanics. Because they're not happy or pleased with those either, right? That's still very much a work in progress, and they showed their whole roadmap of the direction they want to go in. That is where, again, like coming back to you, and I'll respond to like the Nikita thing in a minute, because I think that's also has its flaws. Is you have the advantage of kind of knowing the direction that they're going in, and almost the exact order that they want to go in with that. Nobody else in the game knows exactly what the mining career is going to look like long term. There's no reputation, there's no economy, there's no and this goes for everything. Salvage, bounty hunting, right? Nobody knows what the game is supposed to look like. At least you, in the next year or so, have an idea of the direction they want to go in. So when you do give feedback, you're also informed from that. So when you give feedback, you know that the solutions and the issues that you're experiencing are likely resolved by slowing the speeds of the ship down or whatever, right? But hey, we can keep yelling from the rooftops that why isn't that the number one priority? Like, the faster we go, the more problems we got when it comes to that stuff, right? We can keep yelling that. But yeah, it's like massively advantage when you're like, from a flight combat scenario, you have a lot more to work with. But very quickly on Nikita, I think a lot of people from the Tarkov community also don't feel heard, because they feel like the only people that are being heard by him, and I've seen people complain about this, is the only Deadly Slob, or Anton, or Clean, or Pastilli are the people that have a voice in that community. And I think in a lot of ways, Star Citizen struggles with that a little bit as well. So, a popular YouTube video comes out, and then all of a sudden the third-person camera is the most important thing in Star Citizen, and you're just like, what? Like,
Well, would you like a relationship? Like, I mean, like, and I'm talking about your background, right? Like, your background is logistics, more so mining and the mining gameplay loop, and your community is built really around mining and the mining gameplay loop. Like, would you not like a relationship or like be able to feel like you're in touch with
I
the,
do.
the mining crew over at CIG?
Sure, I do, but if you Google mining on YouTube, there's hundreds of videos being made by other people that aren't being heard. And that
Mm-hmm.
might not agree with the points that I make.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
But I
only
think
one
like
person, you know?
I would say, yeah, but I would say that like even, some outreach to, some people in the mining community is gonna, go a long way to making you feel better rather than, okay, they're gonna boycott any of the mining community because they don't want it to be favoritism.
No,
Like, I
yeah, I
think there's still
understand.
value there.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm not saying that there
eh,
isn't value. Obviously, somebody being heard has value, right? It's just, it's always the same people that are heard.
well, like, let's take it to the extreme. How would you feel if marketing, like, took off the shackles and let developers come on podcasts?
They do.
Like, you could invite Luke onto your podcast,
I could.
for
I could have
example.
a long time ago. And I
Oh,
think I
well,
am
yeah.
going to have a developer on the podcast.
I've tried, like, and I mean, I get the swift no, but that might be because I got a ban warning. But like,
Could
I
be.
don't know, like, but you know what I mean? Like, if they were far more prominent in the community, like maybe, I mean, Xylo goes on the 890 Jump podcast, right?
Exactly, because they asked,
But
and he feels comfortable going on that because um, they're probably not going to ask the tough questions where you would, and I may. Hold on,
mhm.
I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me.
I just
So
think it would be neat, if we got, a little bit more,
let me give you some
a
insight.
little bit more open development, maybe. I
I'll
don't
give you
know.
a little sneak. Like I could have Jake on, right?
Hmm.
And I would like to, but here's how I would have to do it. I would have to. I don't think I can do it without being like, here are the things that I want to talk about. Here's a number of questions that I would ask, and let them know ahead of time what they would be. I did have a developer on. I think it was not Answer the Call on the Redacted podcast. I think he's here now. It was Matt Sherman. So he was like a designer. He designed the Cutlass, the second iteration of the Cutlass, and many other things, right? But I gave him all the questions ahead of time because you don't want them to feel uncomfortable. And you don't want them to feel like they're going to be on the spot where they could potentially lose their job to be on a creator's podcast, which means literally nothing to them, but it means a ton to us as the creator, right? So you don't want to put them in a crappy situation because you respect them too, and you respect that
Hmm.
they came on. Um, yeah, he's in chat. He goes, "Yep," and there was an off-camera community manager in the room with me during the interview the entire time. There you go. So like, don't answer that question if it got too crazy. But I also think that they didn't trust us because it was me and Soros, and at the time I think we were way more hyperbolic than even I am today on the the show. I don't actually know what hyperbolic means, but I just think it's like means bad. And so I think I could have Jake on, but I would have to do that, and I could absolutely not have callers talk to him after because you have no idea what they're gonna say, and
Yeah, I
you
don't know.
can't
Like, I
screen
don't
it.
know. Like, I don't think I'd be talking about like Jake, like just because
Jake's
Jake
not
is
a
like,
developer, right? He's
community
a community
manager. Yeah,
manager.
like you're
It's
not gonna
different.
get like the juice out of Jake, right? Like unless you're gonna talk like overall politics with the game or something. But
You could
like,
get the juice out of a community manager, especially Jake with the roadmap stuff, because he actually knows what's being worked on. You could get
oh
juice,
yeah,
but
but I'm talking about like, hobby, you're like mining details, like, how do you see the mining loop? How do you see it incorporating into this? Like the guys really in there, developing the mechanics and stuff. I just think like personally that would be awesome. Like I mean, you know me, like I'm not like that interested in the mining loop, but it would be really awesome to, be able to go to, mining themed podcasts and see, the mining community interacting with the mining developers, and seeing that back and forth and, stuff like that. I just think there'd be so much value in that. I get it, there's some downside, but I just, that would sell me. Like, and I think it would sell people, right? Like you go, you have a look in Star Citizen, as a project, and you see, the developers are so close with the players. I think that would be dope. I think it would make even the project look more legitimate.
Okay, well,
If you ask me.
yeah, and I'll respond to that. But before I do, guys, if you're in chat and want to have a part of this conversation at all, you're more than welcome and free to pop on the show. Discord.gg/SaltEMike. You can pop in the green room under the Answer the Call podcast category. Because me and Reezer aren't done here, but me and Virgil aren't done here, but then it's Reezer, and then there's some open space. So if you guys want to pop in, you're more than welcome to. The thing about that is I think it ties all the way back into the topic. And the topic is our feedback even that valuable? So what do they get out of talking to us? What do they get, like, in the end? And I don't think this is where you're going, but it does seem to be like a bit of a theme, is you just want to be heard and know that you're heard. But the idea here is that even if we are heard, aside from ship combat, because like you have a whole team dedicated, it's pretty sick, and super and way too important. Like it is the most important part of the game. I think that there's way more value in a K Winter podcast or a vehicle experience team podcast than there is anything else in the game, right? Mm-hmm. And like your point of like me going on with like Dan Truffin and going back and forth with design with him would be really fun. But what would the topic of conversation mostly be around? It would be in the distant future, and it would be in what the groundwork of the game actually, how it would improve mining. It would, like I would ask, yo, are we going to craft with minables? Yes. Are we going to... is the economy going to bounce around and make, more minerals be more interesting? Yes. Are you going to add hundreds of more minerals to the game unique to different star systems? Yes. Is it really going to be that interesting? Is it going to really be that value? No, not at all. But I do think when it comes to the vehicle experience team, that is where you get massive value in something like that. It's something everybody in the community experiences. It's something everybody in the community does, whether it's PvE, PvP, just flying around and low flying. Every single player experiences that. So I think you're onto something, but I don't think it involves myself. I think it involves you and other people in your bubble of your bubble of creators instead of me at all. And anybody who's interested in any other aspects of the game.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yeah,
I think that would be an incredibly valuable.
But...
Yeah, no, I'm not saying yourself, but like anybody in that space, I think can get so much value, and it would be the best. That would be the best scenario.
Do you wish that would happen then? Do you wish that the flight experience team were like more public facing than just, through the lens of marketing, the Star Citizen channel or the YouTube channel? Like, do you wish that... So then, do you wish that the developers were...
That's where your point is 1,000% correct. I think it only applies to flight, though. Because the rest of the game is so far from being even remotely experienced that and that's like the point of today's show, is that a lot of the feedback that we give is so black and white. I was able to experience it, it worked, it didn't. But when it comes to flight, there's so many like little minute details and it is much further along in its development than any other part of the game, right? And yes, you are hindered by the issues with a server, but you are not hindered by the fact that there is, I mean, you are a little bit, but like for PvP, right? But that there's no economy.
I get it though, like
Yeah.
you know what? There's no what's the hacking community got? Yeah, like
Yeah.
nothing. What is
You
the
could-
salvaging community got?
You
Nothing.
could, yeah,
I
you
get
could
it.
talk to a developer today about their experience, your experience today, and how it could be improved tomorrow. But a lot
But I
of
don't
people in
think-
Star Citizen can't.
I know you had the you know the pleasure of having a developer on your podcast, but I don't think they're allowed to. I don't think that
They
like
are.
I mean I put in a request like for the flight guys to the official channels, which is like their support page, request a dev or whatever, and the answers I got was not unless it's through marketing, But I don't know, like I don't think I've ever seen developers outside of what you just mentioned, on any podcast or anything. But I'd love to see it, I
Well,
think
how
that
do you
would-
get in touch with marketing then? I just think, like, would you, with, you have like a ban warning, maybe that's like an automatic no. You have,
It could be.
yeah, you have a bit
Well,
of
I hope,
reputation
like,
that
I hope
precedes you.
someone, Yeah, I hope someone. Yeah, and I get it. Like, they wouldn't want to appear, favoritism, especially, with I guess the type of player I am and stuff like that, right? Like, I totally get it. But
Yeah, and like,
I'd still
listen,
like to see it,
have you ever signed an NDA with them? Have you ever
Yeah.
been to an office? Have you ever talked to people in real life? Right? It's so there's situations with like me versus you. If let's just do it that way.
I'm
Where-
on an NDA too, though. But yeah,
Okay,
sorry,
but
go
like
ahead.
I've been to the office. I've been told
Yep.
thousands of things that I've never leaked.
Mhm.
Right? I know things that most people in the community don't know, so they know that they could trust. Do they have that same level of trust with you? Maybe not. Right?
Mhm.
So there's like those
Yeah,
things.
and even if it wasn't me though, like I'm not just strictly talking about like me and my gig. I would just like to see it. That's all. I'd like to
Yeah.
see the developers in there, talking to the passionate players of those loops and stuff like that. I think that would just be, a really cool thing for the project. That's all. Like, and to loop back on like, the theme of this whole show is, how valuable is our feedback. I think that's what I'd like to see, like some player brainstorming interaction with the developers, what they see eye to eye on, stuff like that. I just think it would be really interesting because that's the thing, right? Like part of playing Star Citizen is being involved in the development process. Like that's what, your entire content creation is based around. Like, you're at the same time theory crafting the development, trying to guess how it's going, and reporting on the development news. It would just
I hate that.
It'd be
of it.
really.
I hate that part
Sorry?
of it. I hate that part of it so much.
What part of it in particular?
Everything you just said, the having to guess, the reporting on the news of development, talking about development at all. I just want to talk about like the game mechanics and like min-maxing or this is how you go through this storyline. That was really fun. What did you think about that? Like I don't care. I'm so over this shit. It's so boring.
I kind of love the theory side of it. Like
Theory side
you
is
do
fun.
one of
Yeah,
these-
sure.
when you do one of these shows, like a lot of the time I come here and I compare it to other video games and stuff. I love that kind of stuff, and it'd just be really cool. Like okay, a good example, right, would be like Ashes of Creation, right? Like the main honcho for that, the owner or whatever, I don't know what rank he is in that company, but he has a real close relationship with his community and his backers as well. And he talks about the nitty gritty of other MMOs. People ask him all the time what he thinks about like these games and stuff, and I don't know. I just think I think there's a lot of value there. if there was more of a relationship between the players giving the feedback and the developers that are developing those loops, it'd just be really cool. And I honestly feel like it's probably one of the only missing gaps for me when it comes to this whole project, right? Is, of the 3 years that I've been a backer, I've felt like I'm, for a lot of the time, throwing my feedback into the void and just hoping something sticks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and just to summarize, and close me up, because I'm all out of notes here, I just wish there was a bit of pat on the back, a bit of recognition, even if it's wrong, even if it's right, just letting us know that, we're heard a little.
Sure.
That they see what we're typing or something like that. But, yep, that's probably me done, I think, man.
Yeah.
Unless you had something.
No, I think the last thing I would say is there's two. One. I don't know what DJ True Slayer's role is with Stellaris anymore, because we haven't talked in a little bit. But community manager was the last that I heard. He could be much higher up and some part of the development. I'm not sure. But he's with Stellaris, and he said dev interviews are tricky. You need to make sure that they're PR trained. Then you need to make sure that they're comfortable being on a stream, comfortable with the topic. It's not impossible, but it could be awkward. So yeah, like you could see how, and he's actually in the queue. So I'm sure we'll talk a bit about that. And then Matt, who came on our podcast, Matt Sherman, said the people you're asking would still have to want to be on camera and podcast things. If they're not someone who's already on screen, they may not want to appear, approval or not, right? So there's that. But then I think that there's ways to do it without coming on a podcast and being on a show in front of hundreds of people that would make somebody uncomfortable. Little things like more Q&A threads more often, ways to... hey, why don't you respond to that feedback and say, hey, good idea, right? Little things like that, I think go much longer than coming on one person's podcast and go much, much further, because I think the big theme of this show is to let people come on a show where there are a couple 100, 300, 100, 200, whatever it happens to be that day, people watching that are... you get somebody who may be a content creator or who may not be a content creator with a larger or smaller audience or no audience to be able to speak in front of people and have their voice heard. And I think when you type on Spectrum, you don't know if anybody heard it. And you don't know if the people that you're actually trying to, like even in a feedback thread, you have no clue that the developer read that and either valued your opinion or did not. But then I guess it does come down to it would kind of feel shitty if you typed something and you spent a lot of time on it and a dev updated somebody else's thing and not yours. So I don't know. It's a delicate balance probably, but yeah.
Yep. No, I agree. All right, man. Well, this was good. Yeah.
Yeah, bro. 40 minutes in, we'll get to the second caller. I think the best thing I'll do is I'll do chapters today, so you guys know. Like, I'll come back to Virgil later if you wanted, because it was obviously a bit long, but we didn't have a big queue until now, which is usually what happens.
Be quick too. Fuck.
No, but dude, we like talking to each other, so there's that, right? But the whole thing is the first caller is the one who gets the juices flowing, and I appreciate it, and you definitely did that. So thank you, Virgil.
Alrighty, GG's.
Later, bro. Bye. Oh, bye. I cut him off a little bit there. All right, our next caller here. Oh, you guys could see that, which you shouldn't. Our next caller here is Virgil. Can you tell I haven't done a call-in show in a while? I'm a little rusty, guys. Or not Virgil. Our next caller is Reezer. Reezer, what's up, man?
Hello. Mic check. Everything okay?
Everything's good. How's it going, dude?
Well, doing okay. Thank you for having me on the podcast after all we have been through. Yeah, so
only the stream knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, no worries. A little bit of in joke.
Lore.
Okay, so about feedback and why I never believed that it ever mattered is that for me, all these years I have been following since the very first time I pledged my hard-earned money, you could say, for this incredible project, right? Every single time something is implemented, CIG goes out of their way to point out that anything in the game currently is in tier 0. And you have Jared on ISC, Star Citizen Live, wherever, acting like some kind of like try-hard lawyer currently at court, prefacing every single progress report that it's tier 0, it's not complete, and we are not even talking about something resembling the final product or the final form of this aspect of the game. It's just absolute like just a placeholder currently so we can move on. It's nothing. It's actually worthless. So I 100% agree with you that nothing we say matters really, because there is no product, there is no game at all that
Yeah.
we can work with, that we can discuss, or that we can provide feedback on, because everything is just a placeholder. It's not even close to the final version. So
Yeah,
I think it's like the biggest cop out. It's the most worthless approach, and like it's another part of this CIG marketing that, oh yes, open development, everything, we the company and the community is fully connected. We appreciate the feedback. We are making this together. You provide us the money, you provide us your thoughts and input, and this will be built together hand in hand, singing kumbaya. And it's the biggest dog shit. I am sorry, but I have not been here, not even close. No, I haven't been here as long as you, and it's blatantly obvious that this project is not being made that way.
it doesn't
And
matter how at this point if you backed in the start of 3.0, if you backed at the start of 2020, if you backed, like it doesn't matter anymore. We've all been through the muck at this point. It doesn't make a difference. 10 years or 2 years, 3 years, it's all the same. I think like obviously that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here too, is like it's overwhelmingly being said that none of this stuff is polished or finished at all. And really, again, the only feedback that there is feedback that does have value. I do think that a lot of it is in the flight and that kind of realm at the moment. But I think the only feedback that matters is, did our bug fix work? Did it not? Hey, are you experiencing bugs at these missions? Hey, are you experiencing bugs with mining? But that's not feedback. That's bug fixing. But that's literally the kind of feedback that they're talking about. Yeah.
And you are fixing a bug that's going to be irrelevant when the tier 0 moves to tier 1 and all the underlying tech is fundamentally changed.
Not true. So that's not true necessarily.
I do believe that like looting will work differently. They said, like, look at looting, for example, physicalized loot, right? Like currently the way it works is that there is like a bubble on a server that stores your items. Why picking up an item and bug fixing that would ever matter if that's not going to be the case in the final product? That you I mean, that's the promise, that you will be carrying all the loot on yourself, physically existing in this 3D space. And like currently they ask for feedback for the backpack tech or whatever it is, when it's just some tiny little extra log of items that the server stores, and it doesn't exist. So
exactly. Can you stop there for a second?
Pointless.
Can I stop you there? Because it's not pointless. Because how are things categorized and managed on the back end of where all your stuff is?
What do you mean? What's the question?
That won't change. Like whether you physicalize something or you don't. Like right now it's not physicalized, right? You take it from a physical form and then you put it into a container and it becomes like its little hollow thing, right? And that's what you're saying, like it'll change. But the way that the server records where your stuff is and respawns it back in or whatever, like my stuff is here, my stuff is there, my stuff is on this ship, all of that's all still valid and valuable, and that'll always be there.
I hope so. That's not what I understood from how a personal inventory works, but maybe I would still think that feedback, when everything breaks 2 patches from now, and then 3 patches from now, it's going to be a different system, or something is going to be revamped, or many new features are going to be added to it. It's ultimately kind of pointless, and it's only to sustain this current like
Drought.
bad tech demo we are playing right
it's
now.
a drought. It's a drought. There's no denying that the game is in a drought. It's been in a drought for years because of the fact that they're trying to make it put more people in a space and do it with whatever tech that they want to do it with, and it didn't work, and it isn't working, and hopefully that this year is the year that they get it working, but I don't think that's going to be the case. And they're just treading water. And the whole thing
Absolutely.
is there's no there I just think that most of the feedback that we give is whether or not something works or not. And I don't think a lot of the feedback, no matter how valuable it could be in the future, I don't think it will feel valuable to the person or worth doing for me or for you or for anyone else, because most, like you said as well, is that most of the solutions are by just making the damn game. It's not about you're not giving feedback on, hey, this is completely out of whack, this is out of balance, or it's very difficult to even say this is fun or this isn't fun, because there is no game to have fun in. I think a lot of people do. Again, I'll say that again. People find fun in Star Citizen. People absolutely do. We just spoke to somebody for 40 minutes who absolutely finds fun in Star Citizen. And like he has Virgil has an org, and they PvP and all those things, and they find fun, and they're some of the most active people in the entire game. And that they exist. That the people like that exist, but the majority of people are still waiting for a majority of the game to be completed.
I always said that I have tremendous respect and appreciation, and I am in awe of your perseverance when it comes to like your content creation, to whatever Virgil is doing, to sit down and just have the ability to enjoy the little that you have to work with, and to make something out of it.
It has nothing to do with the little that we have to work with. It has everything to do with, we don't want it to be what it is now. We want it to be better, and we care more. And I think in a lot of ways, people like myself and people like Virgil might care significantly more than the people who are actually making the game. Because
I would say so, absolutely. Yeah, like we have 700 plus employees. For a vast majority of them, it's just 9 to 5 in an industry where this company isn't paying the best.
You're going to work. Do you think I give a shit about the casino that I work at? No.
Not necessarily.
I don't care.
You're an employee.
Yeah, I'm an employee. I don't give a shit about that stuff. This is my passion. This is my hobby. Everyone cares way more about their hobby than they care about their job. It's just natural. I'm not saying that like Jake or whoever we interact with, it's just a 9 to 5 to them. There's definitely some people that work there that it is their life and they care more than anything. I know that for a fact. But I would argue that a majority of the people that go there are most likely just they're going to work. It is what it is, It's just like, what the hell, man? That's just natural. So, yeah, that's what it is. That's what motivates you, is this is your hobby. This is your passion. You want it to be great,
Yeah, again, the thing that I'm most disappointed of is that we never have any idea of what the final product will look like, right? Like you mentioned with Virgil, you mentioned the dynamic economy, and all right, it's a cool idea for sure. 90% AI, 10% player input, whatever, but they still don't say exactly when, exactly how, and exactly how it's gonna intertwine with other systems. Like, will you have ships actually flying there, or will it be a physicalized ships flying down to to outposts manually by AI? AI, by the way, that's currently worse than a PS1 like Metal Gear Solid game as of right now. Is that AI gonna be able to fly down, react to the environment around itself, and fly their whole C or whole A or whatever down to the outpost, load up on their loot, and then fly back? Okay, you are being angry. Just go. What's your problem? What's up?
Okay, I'm glad you saw it, because all of your answers are yes, and they've talked about all of it.
Okay, Mike, any kind of sign in game, any kind of proof, the receipts, where are they? Where are they currently that it's going to be possible?
But
why am I supposed to believe it? 10 years in. We are 10 years in. 10 years of my life. That's a child being born, growing up, and going to like 2nd, 3rd grade school. And CIG
They already have a
to
crush.
show any receipts. Zero. None.
He's slamming his hands, guys.
You have a 45-minute Tony Z video saying something that's so grandiose and how incredible and overarching everything is, never to be seen in any other video game before.
Do you want them to just snap their fingers and make it then? Like I'm confused at what you're even arguing about now.
It's a $500 million fever dream, Mike. A 10-year-old $500 million fever dream, and
what is your
I'm
point?
Arguing of.
What is your
my
point?
Problem is,
why are you yelling?
What is your point? My point is that you are being so apologetic for a project that has yet to show any actual enjoyable product.
Yet to show and not working on it at all are two totally different things, dude. They're two totally different things.
I don't give a fuck if they work.
I don't give a fuck what you give a fuck about then. Why are you telling me how I'm supposed to be? Again, this is like what we go through every fucking time, dude. You tell me what I'm supposed to be and why I'm apologetic and why I'm wrong in my thinking.
I'm not talking of yourself. Why?
You literally just said that I'm being apologetic for them.
Yeah, because you were talking about a point that I made that is not concerning you, and you took it up as I was saying that it was your point, and I was criticizing you when I was just talking about CIG as a whole and critiquing. You just called
me apologetic for something I'm not being apologetic about. So let's slow down and say all I'm saying is them not working on something is entirely different. Like, those are the receipts, is that they're working on it. Are they working on it at the pace that I think it should be at? Are they working on it at the pace that you think it should be at? Is it being prioritized the way we think it should be? Absolutely not. Is this not a complete joke in the timeline of things? It is a complete joke. It's insane.
Yeah, we agree. You said that. Okay, so where are the server meshing? Where are the dynamic economy? Where are those?
They're being worked on.
Then there are no receipts. Then you contradict yourself.
How?
I am not sure why we are arguing about it.
I don't know what we're arguing about anymore, because you're saying that none of these things exist. But if they're being worked on and they're trying to make them exist,
they don't.
Then what is the point of this? Like, you're just doing the 10 years of development, $500 million game thing that honestly doesn't make any sense. Like, to me saying that has no value or no point at all, because I just don't like. So what is the point behind that? Let me ask you. Like, why say that?
Because it's because you were asking about the feedback. The entire conversation is about the feedback.
Correct.
And then you get angry that I point out that we have no reason to give feedback if we have nothing to provide feedback on, because CIG hasn't provided us anything.
And then you just went on $500 million game pre-alpha, no server meshing, and just went on like
because that's what
rampage
we have now.
I agree.
That's what we're
on
trying
the same
to provide
page
feedback
with these
on.
things. But I'm not apologizing for the place that we're at. Yeah,
I don't. Why would I want you to apologize?
I'm not apologizing for. No, I'm saying I'm not being apologetic for the place that we're in.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, but you can't yell $500 million game, we have nothing, when you have $500 million game and you have people that go to work every day trying to make the $500 million game. Whether we think we go there and are as passionate as I am.
Okay, let me tell you. Okay, here is where I come from. I am a consumer. I do not give a fuck about the people working their 9 to 5 on the game unless I see the game I have. And yes, we are 10 years in, X amount of money spent, and I got nothing. I don't care if 10,000 people work on it.
And I don't want to say this in that way, like the White Knights will say, just go away then. That's not what I'm saying. If you're just a consumer and this isn't a product that's ready to be consumed, why are we here?
The way I was told, and the way CIG's marketing is presenting this is absolutely as it's a playable product, and that's something that we should concern ourselves about.
But you 100%. At this point absolutely know that that's bullshit, and it's not.
Yes, and I still have. I am still here because I believe in the progress and the progress that they promise us that they will make year after year, and then nothing happens. Like you see, like we have this carrot being dangled in front of us endlessly, and then you are angry at us for being upset. I'm sorry, Mike. Like I am not gonna take this kind of why are you here? You are just repeating the meme of 500 million of the meme of 10 year. When why am I? But just leave, forehead. No,
That's
no.
not. I
I don't
literally
care.
just said that I'm not saying that. I'm asking you the question: what's keeping you here? I'm not telling you leave. I'm asking you why.
That
What's
I
keeping you
still
here?
because I still believe that
Okay.
there is the next step will be the one that right this time they will get it. We will get something. I am still excited. And I am still looking forward. I wouldn't
Okay.
be here annoyed. I would just move on, as you said.
Yeah.
Like
Of
I am
course.
not that autistic. I just if I see something I don't care about, move on. Ashes of Creation, for example, it's coming. Who knows when? I'm not gonna go on a podcast and argue about the latest like alpha footage or whatever. I don't care. I care in this regard. And sorry, Mike, but I am entitled to progress for a product that was promised to be much better at this state 10 years in, and something I paid $1,000 for.
Okay.
I am
Doesn't matter. It doesn't
100%
matter how much
entitled.
you paid because you didn't pay $1,000 for it. You paid $45 or
800.
whatever. Whatever you paid doesn't matter. Let's start with that. Whatever you paid doesn't matter. There's people who spent more than you. There's people that spent less than you, and every single one of you is entitled to the same thing. Okay?
And
And
something
I
we don't
agree.
get, don't
And
have.
I agree. It's progress and it's a product. Okay? But I think you came around to exactly the same point of view that I had, is that you believe that the next thing is the thing that will help, and what keeps you here is the hopes, like pure hope that the next thing is going to be a good thing, right? And that it'll make the game better and it might make it more playable. You and I are still here for the same reasons,
Yeah,
right?
but Mike, like let's put it this way. I have never seen a gaming community as cugged as the Star Citizen one, where we just make up all these excuses. Even you, who is criticizing the game, you are just willing to push it further and further. The community is just so thankful and grateful for the most basic as dog shit features. Like, oh man, next patch coming, the AI is gonna be able to recognize dead bodies, just like 15 years ago in any like Metal Gear game on the PlayStation 1. Wow, dude. Like, oh, in Squadron 42, they made the one dual spear attack higher quality. It's really that's what and then you go down to the same bunker mission currently, and that's been there since 2016. That's like a worthless run of the mill tech demo, and then we are just falling on the ground being grateful for the progress every quote unquote major patch is bringing us.
Okay,
No,
okay,
no,
okay,
it's dog shit.
okay. Are parts of this community problematic? Yes. Are people? I forgot how you described it at the beginning. Thankful and grateful for what they have. Yes. Is that ridiculous? Absolutely. Do I make fun of that all the time? Yes. But in the end, and I wish there wasn't a but. In the end, I know that they're going to work every day, and that the problem that we're here, the reason that we're here is because they bit off way more than they can chew, and they said that the thing would be this thing, and it isn't. And now they're trying desperately to survive and keep their head above water and all these things to be able to make that game that they hopefully promise you. Like, the whole thing is a lot of the, like, yeah, and whoever's saying let him talk, he's got a point. He absolutely does have a point. There's nothing wrong with anything that he's saying. It's all literal facts, right? Like, all of this shit is dog shit, and all of these experiences for the members of the community is not the way these things should be. Okay, I'm not invalidating anything that Reezer's saying here. Okay, but the idea behind the marketing versus the actual things that are happening are two totally different things. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being mad at the absolute joke of the marketing of this company and the way they do things. But then there is something like that's where I am differing, and that's where I'm quote unquote being apologetic, is because I know that there's the marketing and that I know that there's what's actually happening. And it's sad that what's actually happening is not happening as fast as we like, but it's actually happening. Or, okay, if you say it's actually happening, then that means that, like, server meshing is going to happen and it's going to work. I don't even think they know the answer to that question. I think they're actually working on it, and hopefully it works. And it may not. And if it doesn't, I'm probably done, because I'm not willing to put much more time and effort and energy into something that clearly just isn't going to work. And I purchased and bought for a certain experience, and if I'm not going to get that experience, I'll look elsewhere for it. And that's it. And I think you're probably in the same situation, but I don't think, like, in a lot of ways you're raging and venting, and not really. You're venting at the marketing team, but you're venting at it in a way where you're mad at the
here is the disconnect.
Is what it looks like.
No, I think we are just at the basic disconnect that you appreciate the work the developers who go work on this game every day make.
I don't appreciate it. Like, I don't care.
I don't care. I genuinely don't give a shit.
I don't give a shit about development either. But in the end, as long as it continues, there's a chance that you get the game that you want to play. It's not like they're just sitting there and marketing only is what I'm saying. It's just not moving at the pace that it needs to. I mean, one thing you didn't mention is we're sitting here, like, the one thing that we're all cucked about is that you spent your $1,000, I spent whatever I spent, and they put it all into a game that none of us really care to play. And
dude, like,
that's
more
the
like
issue here,
Squadron 40. Who am I right?
You're right.
500 employees working on Squadron, a skeleton crew on Star Citizen, and they are using the pledged money with zero accountability. We know nothing about Squadron. They talk of the small technical details, never about, like, how the game is coming together.
Okay, Monologue Andy.
And Monologue Andy or not, it's
feedback. Is
unreal.
It valuable? Has nothing to do with Squadron. So, like, that's where we should like pull it back a little bit.
It's nothing. Yep. I just said my dues.
Yeah, so it's like,
but unfortunately, about feedback, nothing feels worse than losing your passion for a project you were so excited about, and you slowly still holding on, and then getting nothing for holding on for all this time. And I feel like that's where many of us are currently, and that's where in 2022, we are on kind of our last leg, and
I feel the same way.
It's really disappointing. It's really disappointing that they promise theaters of war. They talk of Squadron 42, and ultimately they have never shown us anything complete. And it's incredible. And that's why give the feedback if it's for something that is just a tiny step along the way in this seemingly endless road.
Yeah, and that's pretty much kind of my point in a way. I think yours is a little more doomy than mine, but there are the same points, and that's kind of where it is. It's kind of hard to give feedback if the experience isn't there that you'd like to give feedback on. But
for sure, I said everything, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we obviously got angry at each other, but I think it's just because it was disconnecting in communication for me. I get angry when it's
I said earlier, I am a consumer of content. Your content is great. I am here. I consume. That's pretty much it. There is no more to see into it. That it's as simple as that.
I would just say
appreciate
this,
it.
If I was in your situation, I would not be. I would just be done with the game until it proves that it was time for me to come back. That's just, like, my situation versus your situation are just different. I put some eggs in a basket, so my eggs are in that basket. And if I didn't have any eggs in the basket, I wouldn't be following the project, because I don't care about the project. I care about the game.
And I think we agree.
And that's
on that.
just me
Okay,
being
Mike.
honest. You know, like I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't care with all the bullshit that has gone on over the years if I didn't have eggs in that basket. You know, but I think a lot of people, because of the amount of money that they spent, maybe you included, feel that the eggs are in that basket in that way as well. You know, so
Yeah, and they were in a basket that looked very promising, and
yeah, it had all the little.
it was supposed to be the one.
The little green, fake grass. It was like a nice Easter basket. That's what it looked like. It was exciting. There was going to be some chocolate in there, some Starburst jelly beans. Those are my favorite. You know?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep, I agree. Okay, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Dude. All right, buddy. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye. All right, next up is Slothinator. Slothinator, what's up, dude?
How you going? Can you hear me well?
I can hear you great. How are you going to follow up that?
Yeah, look, I'm sorry, Chad. I'm not going to be as entertaining as Risa, but I'm chasing that carrot on the stick as like a hobby. So I'm confident that the game's going to come out eventually, but just not soon.
Yeah.
But anyway, to get back on topic. So we established that it's hard to give feedback for like two reasons.
Mm-hmm.
None of the gameplay that we have is currently in the game is fully out yet.
Yeah.
So, you can't bring it out. But and it's not super clear on how the future content will work because of CIG. We have no idea how it's all going to come together, right? So breaking down those 2 points, we have a matter of development speed and a matter of communications.
Mm-hmm.
So since we can't really rush out content or development speed because of the background limitations that the community has no control over, the only way that we can supply valuable feedback is for CIG to give like much more stone cold clarity and ideas on how something will work. Everything is really, loose, I think, on, like we talk about exploration, we sort of have no idea on how that will fully work in its entirety. So I think that this is more of a conversation about communication. And that's where most of the heat that people have on Star Citizen lies, it's communication stuff. So you were saying to Risa before that like feedback has nothing to do with Squadron 42, but I think it does.
Okay.
Mainly because a lot of the content and a lot of the development has gone into Squadron 42. And if that's the case, then I kind of want to see what the game is being going towards, People like Risa are mad because they're seeing nothing, but, they're kind of keeping for Squadron 42 away from us, from spoilers and all that, which is cool, but, I just want to see where that money's going, I want to see the development. And I know it's coming along, but...
Yeah, but is it? So, all right, a big part of Squadron 42 must be these two specific things. We know it's a military-based game, right? You're in the military, your character's in the military in the game. You would imagine ship combat and FPS combat would be major features of that game, right?
True.
Now, you would also expect ship combat and FPS combat against AI would be major features of that game. You will never be able to see at this current stage how good the AI is because the servers are so bad. So that's one thing, right? So giving feedback on that is kind of difficult. But looking at Squadron 42 and seeing its progress or its coming along is very difficult because if you look at the way ships fly and you look at the way we move around in FPS, it looks like there's not a lot of progress being made on the actual game, and there's being a lot of progress being made on, I don't know, some cinematics or some shit. Because guys, this has been said, this is common knowledge, the Star Citizen game branch is the same damn branch as Squadron 42. The way FPS works, the way your gunplay is, the guns, the ammo, the way everything works is the exact same thing. right? There. That is the P4AR is the P4AR in Squadron 42. The way you reload is the way you reload in Squadron 42. There's no different ammo types in Squadron 42 because they haven't made them yet, right? So that's what it is. So that's like, yes, you could give feedback. Like tying all the way back around is you could give feedback on FPS and it could help Squadron 42. I guess was where I was coming around to.
I guess so, but I mean, like, even I was saying it before in chat because we were talking about mining before, and I guess in terms of the gameplay itself, like the physical aspect of going to a rock, having all the components and variables sort of attached to it, um, you know, everything about that is done. But the rest of the game comes along with mining. You're going to need to have an economy working with it. You're going to need to have, I don't know, piracy working with it. That all adds to um, the whole mining experience, but that's applies to PvP as well, and combat. Currently, I think it is
Yep.
not at all fully done, and so things like combat is just we can give feedback on it now, but until we have fully implemented systems where everything sort of comes together, it's really tough. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. The way CIG has sort of pushed out this idea of you can't really give feedback on something until you know how it fully works. I'm not a fan of it. I think that's kind of dumb because they promised open development and it's been mostly behind closed doors, I think. But let's say that communication has been fully fleshed out, right? Whether or not CIG will actually be able to respond to that feedback in a healthy way is I think another region of this topic.
Yeah.
Um,
The first
yeah.
caller saying, I just want to be recognized for my feedback, so I know that it was valuable in me doing it.
Yeah, true. So far, I don't think you can tell how they would be able to fully respond because there is, like I said, no complete game loop.
Yeah.
And we've only seen how CIG responds to this half content that we currently have, which I think has probably been mostly quality of life stuff. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think most of the development recently has been quality of life stuff, which is it's weird. It's good. It's bad. It's like what's going on here? Why aren't we working on features and why are we working on quality of life? You see people mention that, but I think at some point where our feedback should be valued or how they should express to us what's the current the one question that I would love to ask and I think could help out with this a lot is just get Chris Roberts on the screen and be like, where are we now and what's going to be our next what's our near future, what's our next 6 months look like, what's important to you, and what should we be paying attention to, right? And kind of drive our feedback in that way, because I think we all know that the game is a ways off, and I keep saying this, and I've said this for a long time. I like the idea of them putting quality of life in the current experience, because I think we all know that the worlds that they've built are quite incredible, and it's really nice, and it would be really cool to have a decent video game or something to do, to be excited about, to come home from work and be excited to play Star Citizen. And quality of life is important for those things. So, and looking at the game and going, hey, we can probably make something interesting in here. And while you wait for the actual big, grandiose Star Citizen. And if that was the case, which I think is the case, is kind of expressing that and being like, hey, we're going to give you this for now as best we can, and then, go head down on the big things later. Then I don't know. I'm kind of rambling on a little bit, but
No,
if I knew what they wanted in the short term, it would be a lot easier to give feedback then, right?
Yeah, of course. And well, okay, let's say, Mike, that they had fully communicated, for example, how everything in the game is going to be working, right?
Yeah.
And we know that with our currently limited systems, we see something like mining and we look at, I don't know, some feature in the future, and we can say, oh, mining is not going to be able to work well with this feature that you're going to implement in the future.
Uh-huh.
And, this is based on no fact or anything, just my observation and copium that I think CIG will respond to it in a positive way. I think it was Risa who was saying that, oh no, it was the first caller, sorry. They were saying that there is such little communication and like openness with the devs. I don't know. I kind of disagree. It's not as good as it could be, but it is solid enough that they definitely have their eyes open, and I think they do have good intentions where they really do want to try to put out the best product. And if there is this overwhelming sort of um, out, what's the term? I don't know. Speaking against a certain way content works, they're going to try to fix it. And I don't know. I don't know if that's a popular opinion, but I don't know. I think they will be responding positively if we had that full communication of how things would be working in the future.
Yeah.
People tend to, in the community, I think, poke holes in a lot of things, and it really forces them to, I guess, change it up. For example, Death of a Spaceman, that had a lot of flaws in it, I think, initially, with the whole cloning system and how it's going to work in your character and reputation. And so they really sort of hammered in on that idea. And so by the next time that they referred to it or talked about it, like a couple of years later, they sort of had an answer for everything, and they sort of tried their best to cover it all. So, yeah, I don't know. I think they'll be responding well to content in the future. I think they're going to respond well to feedback in the future, but I'm not happy with how they're displaying their development and their stuff. So again, we're not really able to provide feedback. Our feedback is not valuable because we have no idea how it's going to all work together, which I guess comes back to the start. I might have been rambling a little bit. Sorry for that.
No, because I think I guess the good point that you make is they did touch on one major aspect of the game, but in the grand scheme of everything in the game, it's one small piece of the puzzle. It just happens to be one of the corner pieces, right? Is like Death of a Spaceman. And then, like, without knowing exactly how many people are going to be in a location at one time, and how many you could see at one time, how many you could fight at one time in spaceships, how many big spaceships can be in a place. Like, there's still there's thousands upon thousands of more questions that are being asked than are answered with the game.
Yeah.
There are like 5 questions answered versus 5 million questions asked about this game. And that's one of the problems is most of the feedback we give is just fixed by them actually not being in a shitty tier 0 state and of mining, or a tier 0 state of cargo hauling, or whatever, right? It's having those features completely fleshed out. But how do they do that? Their plan and how they communicate it is they're going to put out everything in tier 0, which makes sense. As much as we hate it and as garbage as this is, hear me out, is putting everything and every career in the game at tier 0 is the only way to do it, because how do we have things work together if they're not in the game? You would just talk about how they would work together, and that would be just noise. And like Reezer said, there would be no receipts. So the only way to have the receipts is to put all the garbage tier 0 stuff in the game, and as crappy as it's going to be for us to experience it, we have to have the garbage tier 0 stuff in order to make them not garbage and talk to each other. It sucks, but it is what it is, and we're going to suffer way more before we enjoy this game. It's going to be a suffrage before we enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think the T0s are like, from what I've noticed with every time they have this T0 system in, for example, medical gameplay, right? There wasn't really too much being said on how we should completely change up medical gameplay from the initial implementation of T0. It was more so how to take this current system that we have, and whether or not we're happy with it, how can we just sort of make it a bit better with our current groundwork, right? Which I think a lot of people think that is a form of feedback, but it seems, like you brought up before, more kind of like a bug fixing sort of thing,
Yeah.
It's a bit of a bait, it makes it seem like the community has more of a valuable say on it, but I don't think that's really the case. Whatever tier 0 we get is what we get, and that's what the gameplay is going to be. And people think that their feedback is changing it completely, but really it's just bug fixing and improving that current system, where that current system might need just a fundamental change.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. It just comes down to, how do we understand how cargo hauling is going to be fun if we don't even have cargo hauling Like, what's the solution for cargo hauling, and why does everybody just buy the biggest cargo hauler? Because the game is like, there's no feedback to give. Oh, the feedback is, hey, I want a cargo haul and I can't because I have a massively giant ship and I just swipe my mouse right and gather 600 SCU of the same thing over and over again and travel it back and forth. And while that might be peaceful and people do find fun in that, I certainly do at times. That, like, how do you even give feedback on that?
You can't, right? Like it's possible, bro. Like it doesn't. You
It's
can't
so
take us right at the
placeholder.
fundamental game. Yeah, right. Like,
Yeah.
and you can't go at the placeholder because they can just give that excuse of, oh, it's a placeholder.
Exactly.
And
you're
what are you
just
going to say to that?
What do you do? And yeah. So it comes like, and this was again like going all the way back to the beginning of when I talked about how I made that mining video, and that's where all this stuff kind of spurred from, was the idea behind, I wanted to give feedback on mining. I wanted to yell from the rooftops because I hear one developer on the screen saying that my solution to make multi-crew mining is to have two people shoot a laser at the same spot of a rock. I'm sorry, that's not the solution. That's not the solution. It is part of the solution, but that's what he does. He was a game designer. He's not the guy, the economy guy. He's not the guy who spreads the rocks across the planets. He's not the guy that designs the entire experience. He's the one who designs the experience of me pressing the buttons. And that's his solutions are going to be those kinds of solutions. So I wanted to yell at the rooftops, and I was so angry at him and so angry at the team that made mining because they kept coming up with design solutions for the problem. But when it all comes down to it, the solutions to the problem are for them to inform other teams on improving the experience with what their expertise is. And then at the very same point, I think where we can give feedback is, hey, Planet Tech team, can you stop making things that blatantly destroy the game? Can you please look at the experiences that we have in the game and care about the player experience and not just the way things look? Part of your job needs to be like, if I was going to give feedback, that's a team I can give feedback on, is if you're going to place rocks all over the planet's surface, maybe don't do it without telling the team that puts things for us to gather and things for us to mine inside that collision that you just magically decided looks better on certain moons. You know what I mean? Like, those are the kind of feedback that I feel like we could give. It's like, hey, Planet Tech team, stop ruining the game by making it prettier. Make it prettier, but pay attention to the fact that you actually have a video game as well here, right? There's nothing wrong with what you're doing, but you are making a video game here. It's not a work of art.
Yeah, and that's another thing
It has
about
to be
the whole
playable.
tech demo sort of aspect of it. Man, look, honestly, my take on the beginning of this when I joined and I had my notes up as well, like the first caller, was that they would have a sort of a good feedback to it in a sense. But after this conversation, I'm kind of second guessing that. I don't know if they're going to be having like a great response to a lot of the feedback that we give, judging on what we currently have to a lot of that. But
Nah, man,
again,
like,
it is a skeleton crew on the PU, so I don't know.
the moral of the story is for the last 4 years, and I've said it like 5 times, is they don't want to polish or make or do anything. They have their plan. And the problem is that, like, number one, their plan is Squadron 42. After that, their plan is server meshing and persistence. Neither of those things are done yet. Without those things, they really have no desire or plans of doing anything polishing or making good or making the game, because, like we're saying, there's no point in giving feedback if I don't know what the experience is going to be like. At the very same token, there is no point in them making the game if they don't know what the experience is going to be like. And that's like what I'm arguing with Reezer a little bit about, was there's no point in any of us being here right now. None of us should be here. None of us should be caring about these things. We should all just be going out, doing other things, hanging out, relaxing, playing other video games, and finding out what we love about those games, and maybe tying it to feedback later on in the future for what makes Star Citizen good, is those are the two things that we have to wait for before they literally do anything. And I see like somebody in chat say wanting it perfect on the first iteration. Nobody's asking for it to be perfect on the first iteration, but you're also not asking for it to be completely terrible. And the problem is that they also communicate it like it is a thing that is playable. Like if you look at 315, medical gameplay, like they call it certain things and they show it in a certain light, like it works. But when you actually go in to experience the game, it never really does. Inventory recently, I put something in my inventory, it disappears into the void. It just disappears. It doesn't exist anymore. So there's like
I
so
can't
many
stand the
things.
game because of inventory currently.
Yeah,
It is keeping me off it.
it almost made it worse. It didn't improve it in a way. But yeah, like it just comes down to this: is that's where we are right now, and that's all it is. Is we're just we are in the same boat that they are in. What are the game devs supposed to do? They supposed to just make the game in this 50-player experience for you? No,
You need the meshing.
There's no
but
value for them either.
the game is in Squadron 42. This is why I'm saying we need Squadron 42. This is where we're seeing all the content, but it's being hidden away. And I don't know. This is why it's frustrating.
That's why it feels like there's no progress.
Exactly. But look, I do think there is a progress there. Working in a single player environment is completely different to working in a multiplayer environment. And when you have this many people working on Squadron 42, there is going to be content, but it's just frustrating
believe that,
right now.
though. I
believe that.
I somewhat believe that. But in the history of Star Citizen, a lot of people are not going to. A lot of people are going to be like, nothing is happening. There's no progress. This is stupid. Because 2016 happened. And we had, like, were you here during that time, Sloth? The burn down, all the bullshit.
I back like 2014, early 2014, and then I took a couple-year break. I wasn't around during the big nothingness of 2016. I was doing school, I guess.
So people don't have faith and people don't trust these guys. And I think that in a lot of ways, I understand why, and I understand why. I don't know what else to say there. So while there may be progress being made somewhere, if you don't see it, why should anybody believe that it's actually happening? And from what I see that we have on our servers, which is in the same builds that they have in theirs, Flight, not so great. FPS, fucking terrible. So
I thought Flight was pretty good.
I would say it's not so great. I think that there's a lot of things that need to happen before it's good. Specifically, slowing down ships during combat is like a major, major, major problem.
I've heard a bunch of FPS.
If you're above 500, 600 meters per second, it's not a playable experience, I don't think.
Someone in chat, I was reading it before, was saying, I don't give an F about a single player game, even if it's Star Citizen lol. Yeah, to be honest, I think a lot of people are in the same boat. Let me know if you're the same, Mike. I to be honest, don't care too much. Oh, you played Wing Commander? That's cool. Yeah. So, I mean, look, for me personally, I'm not too excited about Squadron 42 for the sake of playing Squadron 42. I just want to see the content that's in Squadron 42 because I know that's what's going to be coming to the PU. That's why I'm hyped for Squadron 42.
He wants to see, I think, I'm not to put words in your mouth, but if that's where you're putting most of the money and most of the effort, you would like to see the progress being made on that. And these guys are so, like, just absolute, what a clown show. The last time that they wanted to show us the progress that they made, they showed us the interior of a satellite. Like, that's not really what we're looking for here, guys. We're looking for major, we would want to see, like, a mission. But the problem is that would tell the story,
That's another complete conversation, but I mean, we won't get too far into it, but I know it sounds silly, but can't people just not look at it if they don't want to care about the story? I get there's like ways that it can be spoiled, but they don't have to show complete mission content. Surely it's not that bad to see a room or something, or maybe some combat that goes on in the story and they can just blur out some aspects of it, Like, I feel like they can be a little bit more open with it without having to spoil the whole game.
I think that's a fair assessment, absolutely. And then I feel like a lot of backers might be a little bit more relaxed about the state of progress in Star Citizen. Like, at the very least, what I think we should be seeing is the teams that moved off of Star Citizen and onto Squadron 42 that are making features and nothing to do with story should be showing those features to Star Citizen fans.
Facts.
I think that should be the bare minimum.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. That's just what I want to see. Look, half the fun of this game for me isn't really the game. It's just following the development of it and just being able to say I was here, I guess. But I'm
the opposite. But yeah, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. It was fun for a while. I don't find it fun anymore. But just tying back to what I just said before, I think it's as simple as like throwing it in a sprint report and not saying or showing what it's for, and just being like, yep, these are actor status improvements being worked on. There you go.
And like
that's
the sprint report just isn't enough, Like I'm a simple guy. The words on the text is the Star Citizen's been doing that for a long time, they've been saying what they want to do, and when they're putting that on a sprint report for Squadron 42 and saying this is what's actually happening, it's hard to believe that when that's what they've been saying for the PU for ages. So you really want to actually be able to see the content being put into Squadron 42. It's like these reports aren't enough. You want some much more tangible, visible sort of evidence of what's going on. Otherwise,
for sure.
But somehow it's getting more funding, so whatever they're doing is working.
Yeah, and like this is this game's not going anywhere from a funding standpoint as far as we can see, and I just hope they keep chugging along on the things that need to happen to make the game happen, and that's it. And I'm gonna hang out and wait and see, and that's kind of my turning point. Is they try this, if it doesn't work, and there's like a million different excuses and blah 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 blah, I'll probably take a much larger step back, and that's like my whole. What keeps me going is they have to try at least to put server meshing in, and they have to try, like, post that, they have to start ramping up making the actual features, and if they don't, then I'm probably about done at that point. That's just kind of how my mental has always been, and they've managed to string me along super, super long because of that. But after that, I will not be strung along anymore, and that's just where I'm at when it comes down to it. Is if the game that I backed is not possible, why would I still hang out and hope it's gonna happen? So
a bit of a what's it called? Confession is I'm one of the people that you would constantly roast in your streams, who was big on the server meshing sort of fix all button, huff that copium sort of stuff up. Because if that doesn't work, then what is it?
No, I wouldn't. I don't roast that at all. It's not a fix all button. But what it does is it is no longer an excuse. And they may come up with other excuses after that. I'm not willing to accept those excuses anymore after that. So you try it. We know it's static server meshing. It's not dynamic, so we're not going to have like the best ever experience. But you try it. If it doesn't work, I think that's where my patience is over, and that's it. And the whole thing is if they try it and that they don't start ramping up making features like proper salvaging, economy, NPCs start working a little bit better, the experiences, the worlds feel more alive. If that stuff doesn't start happening and that's not a focus, I'm that's where my patience ends with the project. I don't have any time for it anymore.
I agree. Well, I mean, I guess that was pretty much all I had to say. Final point, I guess, on the feedback is it's hard to tell because we don't have enough to give feedback on yet.
Exactly, yeah.
But anyway, thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah, man. All right, Sloth.
You're the GOAT.
See you. Dude. All right, our next caller is DJ Trueslayer. This should be very interesting. DJ, correct me if I'm wrong, community manager at Stellaris?
Correct title is community ambassador, which is essentially a contracted external community manager.
Okay, community ambassador at Stellaris
is the correct job title, yes. But,
gotcha.
Pretty much community management is what I do.
Yeah. For sure.
A
And
lot of event management, a lot of working with people like yourself, content creators,
Yep.
social media management, all of that sort of stuff.
Gotcha. So where since you have a way different point of view than all of the other callers, where do you fall
yes.
on this?
So first of all, the first thing I'll say is I haven't played Star Citizen yet.
Okay.
That despite the fact that back in the day, before I was before I worked in community at Paradox with Solaris, I was a full-time streamer on Twitch.
Oh, I remember.
And
Elite Dangerous mostly, right?
Exactly so.
Yep.
I was the other one, Elite Dangerous. So I've always kept an eye on Star Citizen because Star Citizen is a game that I want to play, bluntly put. Yeah. But it's not ready for me yet, personally.
Yeah.
And that's all I can really say on that. But I can provide some stuff about feedback. Yeah.
Of course.
And I can sort of talk about how valuable it can be and how it's best utilized, and a few things that I've heard today that maybe I can just provide some insight on.
Please, yeah.
The first thing that I really want to point out is that gathering feedback is one of the primary roles of a good community team.
Yeah, I was just going to ask
teams-
that. Is that something that is a big part of what you do?
Absolutely. We meet with the producers once a week. We meet with our QA team once a week. And those meetings are partly so that we can give those feedback back to the people that need it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And part of our job, and it's also QA. It's ourselves and QA that gather the feedback. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's not left to one group because then things can get missed, all of that sort of thing. We make sure that we get that feedback to the people that need it. Now, the thing that has to be said there is feedback is not always acted upon, no matter how good the feedback. There's an awful lot of things that can get in the way. Yeah. Be it your current priorities, be it available skills, be it available time, and of course the biggest one, money. Yeah.
Yeah. Star Citizen doesn't have that problem.
They have a lot more than we do. But there's always things like that lead to different sort of gates that you have to go through in order to get something dealt with.
Sure.
One thing I will say is the more that a team hears something, the more likely it will be to get dealt with. That's obvious, right?
Sure.
And so if more of the community are talking about the same thing, it is more likely to be looked into.
Yeah.
The other thing that I definitely wanted to talk about was the fact that one of the things I've heard over and over here is that you guys don't feel you hear enough from the developers on Star Citizen.
Yeah,
And,
when we hear from them a lot, but I feel like they don't hear from them in the way that they want to be heard, like that they want to hear them. So yeah,
can you explain that for me if you don't mind?
Okay,
Cool.
so this is their kind of community management and their updates and the way they do things. It's actually somewhat similar to kind of what I've been seeing with you guys now with the Overlords update, is having devs come on and explain the design of that specific update and some of the changes that you're making. They do that on a fairly weekly basis, where they'll have a feature that they want to talk about, and they'll have it on their Inside Star Citizen show, which is their weekly look, like very polished, very well edited look at development. And they'll have 2 featurettes typically, or like a sprint report where they show like the really like down and dirty, this is a specific feature that's being worked on. But they usually have like a fancy feature about, let's say, mining or something like that, right? Or an update that they're doing. The most recent one, I can't remember, but that's essentially what it is. And then on Friday, they'll occasionally have designers come on, and this is the ones that people are probably more speaking about than anything, or a lead, like a director of a certain team will come on, and they'll talk about certain features, whether it be flight combat or a specific feature like an entire team came on, which is like probably the most valuable team to Star Citizen at this moment is the European Persistent Universe feature team. They're the ones who made mining. They're the ones who are making salvage, and they're the ones who are making engineering, like the engineer role inside of a spaceship and all these things. They're actively working on all of those things right now. And then that gives us the ability to ask questions and they answer them. But then they also do feedback threads on what's in the game currently. And then the community team, I know, does do very similar to what you guys do. They gather that feedback. Then we have a vehicle, or not a vehicle. We have a experience team, they call it, which is like this before QA is QA, and then the player experience team is what are the issues that the players are experiencing now, and it's kind of QA, but not not traditional QA. So that's basically everything, if that's what you were asking.
Yeah.
So this year is the first time that a community manager reached out to me about feedback in the game, and it's happened in the last 2 months multiple times, which is very interesting and exciting, to the point where it's like, oh, they're doing it. This is cool, and that's really healthy and good. And this is the first year that they've had this player experience team going.
That sounds like a wonderful process. Like, just speaking from somebody that works in the industry, I would love something like that. That sounds great.
This is the first year it happened. So it's, I think another thing that the community has an issue with is they're not seeing it do things yet, but I think it might start doing them very soon.
It has to pay dividends at some point.
Yes.
It sounds similar but very different to the Custodian initiative we have on Stellaris.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So Stellaris has 2 development teams, for those that don't know. We have the Custodian team and the main team. The Custodian team is in charge of free updates, free content, QOL stuff. One of the interesting things they've been doing is going back to old DLCs and adding new content to old DLCs, because let's be honest, there's a lot of DLCs for Stellaris.
Yeah, and they could use some updates, sure.
Yeah, as we've gone on, bluntly put, the game's gotten better. And so 100%. The older DLCs, some of them aren't up to scratch with the newer content. Yeah. And so part of it is just to go back and bring it all up to polish, you know?
Yeah.
And also, obviously, just adding just new content. And then the main team prioritizes for, the big DLCs and the big content changes and stuff like that. Yeah. It allows us to be very agile with development, which is a horrible word, but it is the correct one in this case. And it lets us focus things. It sounds like the team that you're talking about is very similar. Yeah, it will let them look at what the actual pressing needs of the community are and start focusing them.
Absolutely. For QOL stuff, and that's what we've been getting a lot of lately for the first time ever. So many quality of life things, so many, like, the simplest thing, like, very similar to, like, since you have the experience with Elite Dangerous, you know how you would look left and you do a lot of, you might ask for landing with that menu. We have that, but it's a lot more clunky. So they just put a button in where we can request landing. Like, you have the ability to have a keybind now to press, I just want to request landing, right? We never had that. Little things like that is kind of what we're getting now, and that's all through that team.
They're looking at, and that will be low-hanging fruit.
Absolutely.
The first things they'll always go for will be the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that's easier to get coded in, programmed in, and put out to the community. Just little wins over and over again.
Yes.
Stuff like that is entirely what you would want to do. Yeah.
Somebody in chat's going, how do I set that keybind? The problem, and that happens with us too, is the issue with that is we have like we have an Evo Kadi cycle, which is like a under NDA playtest group, and they kind of get the game working enough so it can be playtested in what would be like a beta release for you guys.
Yeah.
And what in that stage, what tends to happen a lot too, unfortunately, is they they spend a lot of their time on the low-hanging fruit stuff, like replacing a replace me ball instead of the problem that I complained about earlier just a few minutes ago. Like, I have an issue where I pull something into my inventory and it just disappears. And it's like, well, somebody fixed the replace me ball. Could that somebody have been focusing on something way more pressing?
Almost certainly not is the answer to that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the answer to that will be with a problem like the one you're describing. The experience tells me that it's likely that the issue that you're having is not an easy fix whatsoever. And the amount of time to replace the replace me ball was very small, whereas the time to fix that is a much larger process, which would not have been able to be completed in time anyway. And so it will have been put slightly back to get the low-hanging fruit done for the release, and this is all supposition,
Sure.
But it's likely that will have then been put back so that they can focus on it with a larger group of people with the right skills. It may be that the person that had the skills that was needed for that, and it's almost certain, didn't do the replace me ball. They were doing something else.
Exactly, yeah. And they were doing something else that's just as pressing, probably. With a game like Star Citizen that has as many issues as it does.
And the thing is, you don't know about the bugs that don't get through, right?
Sure.
So you have no idea what they could have been working on. There may have been something far more damaging, far more important, and that may have been the case. Again, all utter suppositions.
Of course.
I'm not going to claim to know CIG's development process. I absolutely do not. Yeah. But I do have some insight into development, and
I mean that's
my immediate guess.
And it's very important for our community to hear it from someone else, because I think there's not a whole lot of trust in everything that they say anymore from CIG, because things, hey, we're working on it, kind of has been the comments for many years, and it's obviously just taking very, very long, but it's also a hugely ambitious game, and that is what it is. So whatever happens from here. But that's kind of the idea behind it is, I think people don't know if CIG is doing what like is normal in other companies. So it is important to hear from other people how a lot of the things that CIG does is kind of industry standard stuff, while at the same time some of the things that they do are completely not, obviously. Like,
it's a completely unique project. There's nothing like it in the history of games. It's been fascinating to watch from the outside. I will be completely honest with you, and I have a lot of sympathy for the teams at CIG. I honestly do. They're trying to make my dream game, bluntly put.
Sure.
Again, like Elite Dangerous fanboy here. Like, good gosh, do I want Star Citizen? Yes, absolutely. Right. To give everyone like some of my gaming background as well, I, as a kid, played things like Wing Commander and TIE Fighter. TIE Fighter was my big one as a kid.
Gotcha.
And so my entire life I've sort of played a weird mix of 4X. Like back in the day, I was playing Civ 2, Alpha Centurion, TIE Fighter, and Wing Commander were sort of the main games that I played back in the day. And this is not my first rodeo with Chris Roberts. Looking at multiple times in my childhood that Wing Commander games were delayed and
were
Freelancer. Oh
so,
god, yeah.
Yeah, see, I never knew like about delays or anything like that. I think I came in Wing Commander 3, but
Chris
through
Roberts
that I played 2 and 1.
He's an incredibly ambitious developer.
Oh, we know.
Incredibly so. But it means that you have to wait. The interesting thing, though, is, and this is the one thing I will say in defense of it, is if you look back, there is a pattern as well, which is when these games are done, they're really, really good.
Yeah, Wing Commander games were amazing.
And so there is that side of it as well, that there is a certain level of historical trust, which is why, for me, I'm perfectly happy to just sit on the side and wait, yeah?
Yeah. Here's my problem, though, is I know he and many people, not many, but I think there's a few left, at least at the Austin studio, that worked on it Ultima Online.
Yeah.
But I have immense trust that Squadron 42 will be a good experience, because, I mean, I don't know what your experiences were, but if you go back now, the missions and the actual like combat and like killing the Karathi in the game, it wasn't the most engaging thing. It was like kind of repetitive. I mean, obviously it was a game from the 90s on floppy disks. Wing Commander 2 at least was for me, and Wing Commander 3 was on CDs. But the story that was told was what engaged me. I was like in love with that, right? I played it so much and played it over and over again. And then Wing Commander 3, you had some choices that you can make and things like that, right? Yep. And I can see Squadron 42 being great. I'm still on the fence if like all the ideas for Star Citizen are good ones, and if it's really gonna be that my game dream game like I have the same feeling you do, but I'm hoping now, and I'm not like sure. But I'm sure Squadron will be fun in that sense. Like it'll be watching like a movie, and a story will be told that should be pretty fun, I would think.
I assume and hope they've stuck to the branching narratives that they went with the later Wing Commander games, and if that's true, then yes, I agree with you. It'll be a genuinely interesting experience.
What was your favorite Wing Commander?
I'm going to be really wrong here. Privateer.
Okay, you're not wrong at all. Privateer, yeah, but let's go. Wing Commander Privateer was mine as well, but I mean the Wing Commander...
And the main one.
Ones.
Oh, I got it on a CD on the front of a like the first chapter came free on a CD on like a PC gamer magazine.
All right, so it's one of two games.
I'm just trying to remember which one it was. Hang on, I'm having to go to the wiki because it's been a long time.
Well, were you fighting humans or were you fighting the Kilrathi?
Was it Prophecy?
No way was it Prophecy. That was your favorite?
Was it Prophecy?
I hope not.
No, it wouldn't have been Prophecy. It would have been Prophecy would have been too early.
No, Prophecy was 5. Wing Commander 5 is Prophecy. It was the last one. And it wasn't even made by Chris.
The way they've put it in the wiki, they put them in a really weird order.
Prophecy was the worst. It had potential, but it was terrible.
I'm now wondering. It must have been 4.
Okay.
Price of Freedom.
Yes, that was my favorite too. But I thought it would be like...
reading the quick summary of the plot. Yep, it was 4. Sorry.
Yeah, because the plot is so like not fighting the Kilrathi, I thought people wouldn't like it. 4 was by far my favorite.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, if you said Prophecy, I was gonna have to hang up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Prophecy was really bad. That was the bugs.
Yes, that was when I gave up on that series.
Yep. It's when they did too.
But yeah, no, the best one is Privateer.
Yes, for sure.
Although, again, as someone who played Elite an awful lot, you will be stunned to know that Privateer was my favourite.
Yeah, right?
Given that it came out in between Elite 3 and 4, basically.
Privateer is Star Citizen. Wing Commander is Squadron 42. And I played Privateer way more than I played Star Citizen, or played Wing Commander. So, yeah, absolutely.
And how much Freelancer did you play?
I never knew. Okay, so I got out of games once because I was like pretty heavy into sports. So once high school came around, you were forced to kind of like dedicate a lot more time to it. I thought I was like maybe gonna go somewhere with baseball, and I didn't game as much through like my junior, senior, and all through college. And I was playing poker a lot. That's when poker blew up, and obviously I'm a poker dealer now, and all that stuff happened through that. But I came back to gaming in 2011 or 2012. Between like 2002 and 2012, that 10-year period, I barely gamed. So I never knew freelancer was a thing.
So
And
if
then
you can find
I
a
played
working
it.
version of it,
Oh, I have it. I played it recently.
it's worth
Star
streaming.
Citizen.
Yes,
did.
it is.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
it's
Right, good.
Yeah.
I missed that. If I'd have seen that, I would have dropped in.
Oh, it was years and years ago before we ever met. I
Ah,
streamed it.
damn. Yeah, no, that's it is so much what Star Citizen is going to is trying to become.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could see the inspiration so much.
Yep.
But yeah,
the multiplayer of that back in the day when people were running servers was astonishing.
we tried to run our own and we struggled.
Yeah. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a really that was my first taste of what I eventually found in Elite Dangerous. You know.
Yeah.
It is definitely one of those things. But yeah, with the other thing that I definitely want to add is there is one thing you lot can do as a community
Okay.
to really help everything.
Write this down, guys.
And this is going to sound like I'm preaching, but
Preach.
I promise you, the biggest thing you guys can do to make the relationship between you and the developers better is really, really simple. Be polite.
Yes.
Yeah? That, more than anything in the world, will change the relationship between you and your developers. It's that simple.
Yep.
One of the things we on Stellaris are incredibly stringent about is we accept people having issues with the game. I will not sit here and tell you that Stellaris is a perfect game. It is not. Yeah? And I'm quite happy for people to tell me. In fact, I want people to tell me their issues with Stellaris. Yeah? Because, as I say, that's part of my job, to take that to the QA teams, to take that to the producers. Yeah? But you need to do it in the right way. Don't attack the person, attack the process.
Yes.
Don't use language that leaves interpretation open. Don't call people idiots. Yeah?
Oh shit. I call everybody an idiot.
I know. I used that on purpose, my friend. And I know it's hard at times because I've been on I've been on the other side of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so as I've been in your position with Elite Dangerous.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yep, it really is. Very, very difficult.
Yep. I remember, you probably don't remember this. Did you ever go to like PAX South or something like that?
PAX
years
East.
and years ago? PAX East, that's
PAX
when it was.
East, E3, TwitchCon.
You and I met and went to lunch at PAX East.
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah, a very long time ago. And you were in the stage where like Elite was popping off and it had all this potential in the world. And then here we are today. I hope.
Yes.
I just hope it's, and I feel like in a lot of ways, like it's kind of Star Citizen and Elite are in the same boat, but Star Citizen fortunately doesn't have that many other projects they're working on that and shareholders that they have to take care of, and hopefully something can come of this one. Do you think Elite's dead?
No.
Me neither.
I'm
I
not
think
sure
it's still
what's
got
happening.
a chance.
I'm not sure what's happening with Elite.
Yeah.
They seem to have reprioritized on the PC version, which is probably for the best.
Yeah. Do you still play it?
No, I haven't for a long time. Bluntly put, that's not because of anything other than a lack of time.
Yeah.
The way that I work at the minute, and the way that Stellaris is at the minute, an MMO isn't something I have time for.
I know, I'm
And Stellaris,
struggling to
Yeah.
like I'm trying to play New World at the same time, and I'm struggling with it
Yep.
to just be able to experience it. It's super tough, and I really want to play Mortal Online 2. No chance I have time for that, and so it's tough. But in the
I'm
end,
playing Weird West with my wife at the minute.
oh, cool. What you said about being polite, I think I've gotten some criticism, like even like Reezer said, like apologetic. I've been called a shill more recently and things like that, because I did recognize that, and I've become a lot more. Like, I used to be so ragey and get so upset at, like, this specific guy is stupid. And, like, even more recently, I got really frustrated with one specific guy from that EU PU feature team about issues with mining. And, because I think that the things that they're actively developing on are making it worse instead of making it better. And it's just the truth. It's facts. It's not it's not even something you can debate. But the thing that bothered me was that he always had a solution that wasn't the solution to fixing the problem, because he's a designer and that's what he does. And his design idea, yes, it can help fix the problem, but it's not fixing the root of the problem. It's like, you know how sometimes there's the Band-Aid fix versus the actually fixing the root of the problem? That's essentially the difference between those two things. The root of the problem, it has nothing to do with the Band-Aid. What the Band-Aid was going to do. And it was driving me insane. But then I realized this guy is a designer, and the other guy, the other teams are the ones that actually fix the problem. And I made a video about it and got messages from developers at the company and all these things. And it not only does it feel good that, like, oh, I was, like, treated with respect. It's like, holy shit, he treated me with respect. Which is, so I'll actually listen instead of being called an idiot or being, raging about whatever. It doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't make it any better. Like, you might feel better in the moment, like letting it out. That's my personality. That's how I work. If I freak out for a moment, it's what I needed to do at that moment. I don't know if I would like to actively be better at that, but I don't know. Like, I'm not going to make any promises that that's going to happen. But I noticed that I've got a lot more traction on things that I would like to see change and feedback and all those things. So to tie this all the way back around is just treating people with a little bit more respect does get you a lot further. And if you want your voice heard in the game, and in any situation in game development, that's the way to do it. Is you don't have to agree with everything that people say, but
it's how you disagree.
Yeah, it's how you disagree. Giving good feedback isn't yelling, this is stupid. Like, one of the only times that I did get a response from a developer on a feedback thread was when I just simply said, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to give feedback on something that doesn't work. Like, I can't experience it, but you're asking for feedback, and that's really difficult. And he was like, just responded and was like, yep, totally understand, blah 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 blah. And that, instead of being like, this is a broken piece of shit or something like that, which is what maybe I would normally say. Can I give feedback on Stellaris?
Oh, please.
Tell
me what you think.
It's my favorite game. It's been my favorite game. It's my favorite game for years now. But I don't play it that much because I find myself, and this is maybe just me not being like as much of a Chad player and being such a good player, because you and I have played and like you totally dunked on us in a multiplayer game because your understanding of the game, right? Mid game is so difficult for me Like, what I love about the early game of Stellaris is, like, okay, you have your little oh my god, I can't believe the word is escaping me.
Science ships.
Anomalies.
Yeah,
Like science ships, obviously. So anomalies pop up. There's little stories that are being told about your civilization, right? Once you hit mid-game, you're like moving pops all over the place, and there's this and there's that, and it's like bink, bink, bink. There's like a million notifications that come up, and I'm just like, I don't feel like I'm playing anymore. And then you get to endgame, and you feel like you're playing again.
Yeah.
And I always struggle with that, and that's what makes me put the game down. Is I start a playthrough and I like have my whole RP of my civilization ready or my empire ready, and then I kind of lose interest because of mid game a little bit.
Yeah. So a couple of things on that.
Is that good feedback, by the way?
Yes.
Is that how you provide
First of all,
feedback?
yes, absolutely, that's good feedback, and it's not unique feedback. This is, to be honest with you, probably the
I could tell you guys have tried.
One of the biggest bits of feedback we get. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one we've clearly listened to, right?
Yeah.
And we've been working on it now for a while. If you look back to Federations, Federations introduced the Galactic Community, which expanded the mid-game. Since then, we've been expanding on the Galactic Community. Now, one of the things that hopefully will add to this is the new situations system that we're bringing in. Which is both coming in with the free patch and DLC that's coming up. So situations, the best example I can give you, and the one that's been most heavily detailed, is at the moment, if you go into negative on a resource, things start producing less, and the moment you're in a positive in the resource, everything goes back to normal. Yeah. Now, when you go into a negative on a resource, a situation begins, which takes you through a process where there's a bunch of events that can fire and all of that sort of thing.
That's cool.
Which will also guide you towards how to fix the problem, is the idea.
Okay.
It's pretty neat. It's a pretty cool system, and it's not just used for that. It's used fairly extensively already, and it's something that we're looking at expanding. Stuff like that is aimed for that. The other part, of course, is in Overlord now, we're introducing the new subject types.
Yes.
That also, one of the things with them is you can force them to vote with you in the Galactic Council, which allows you to manipulate the Council more to your liking, which again starts to add more to your play in the mid-game.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, I'm not going to, guarantee it, but hopefully it will help. And there's other stuff coming that we haven't talked about yet.
Cool.
So, little bit of madness. That's the other bit of feedback that we get the most, funnily enough.
He says, Stellaris is very daunting to me as a new player. Looking from the outside, it looks insanely complex.
Yes. That's the other bit of feedback. And people that have been playing recently will have seen we've actually been doing some stuff to try and help with that.
I think Star Citizen suffers from that too a bit as well. It's
any really deep game that's in live development does. It's a fascinating thing where you have this whole problem where tutorials cost money to develop and take people to develop.
Yep.
And keeping your tutorial up to date and good enough alongside creating new content and introducing new stuff, it's a whole world of... It's a snowballing problem. Yeah. And... It's fascinating. It's really enjoyable to be a part of the process, to be honest with you. And as said, like, I do feel a bit for CIG to sort of bring us back round, because CIG are probably doing the most open production process any game's ever done.
Yeah.
I've never seen a game give builds so early. And show everything. It's for me, before I started at Paradox, it was a great insight into how the games industry worked, looking at a lot of their stuff. And good gosh, it must be a very difficult tightrope to walk, and I can imagine they get it right as much as they get it wrong, or vice versa.
100%. So, like, as a community member and as somebody who follows the project very closely, and this is something that I think a few of the callers kind of were frustrated about, is it's like open development with quotations around it, because it's open development when it's convenient for them, because they have to walk that tightrope.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where they can't say everything. Like I mentioned this earlier, where it was like, when you make a mistake, it would be really cool if you admitted it, because there's been times where mistakes have happened. You don't go 10 years into dev and end up in the situation that we're in now, where the game still is very much the same as it was in 2016 in a lot of ways. That's 6 years ago now, where a lot of major important aspects of the game still aren't in. 6 years later is obviously a problem. That's not nobody would say it's not. And I think sometimes, just saying you're sorry goes a long way, but they really can't. If you say you're sorry, don't you kind of open yourself up to a lawsuit or something like that? So they're in this weird situation where if you just said you were sorry, you wouldn't look so bad in a lot of people's eyes. But can you even say you're sorry for things like, hey guys, we were wrong, because at least in my job, I don't know how everybody else is in their jobs. I have a job where if I make a mistake, it costs somebody money in a lot of situations, and the only thing I can do is say I'm sorry. But what a lot of dealers do is they'll deflect, they'll blame somebody else, blah blah blah, and they'll argue or things like that. And simply saying you know what, I'm so sorry, I screwed that up. It sometimes you could see the player, they're in shock that I wasn't arguing with them or whatever, or blaming them for my mistake, something like that. It goes a long way, but I just wonder if they can or they can't. I don't think they can. It's tough.
Yeah,
so,
the whole situation that as I said that CIG are in, I don't envy.
It's not ideal.
I think,
no, for anybody.
As I said, the one thing that will not get anyone anywhere is hostility. And I saw someone saying, if you've been giving respectful feedback for years and it's not gotten you anywhere, then blowing up is a an approach that you can understand. And from an emotional point of view, absolutely.
That's the whole other thing, is people put so much money into this that breeds this emotion. That's not where I come from. My money was spent a long time ago. It's gone. I don't care. It never even happened as far as I'm concerned. But the emotions get high because of that as well. And it's it's such a weird situation. Is bring it back to feedback. Are people even giving feedback based off for the right reasons? And it's messy.
And Fasselbaum, I didn't read it as that. And I get what you mean, but it's important that you do what I said earlier: attack the process, not the people. Yeah. If you have an issue with the process, absolutely complain about it.
Yeah.
But don't attack always remember, there's a person on the other side of the screen. Yeah?
How would you, if you were going to attack a process, what would it sound like?
If I was going to attack a process, how would it sound like? Gosh, let me come up with one in a hypothetical.
Yeah, it can't be about your game, and it can't be about ours, obviously.
Okay, so let's say I'm a Kickstarter for a hypothetical MMO space game.
Okay.
Eve, an elite Star Citizen that does not exist, and they are discussing their plans for networking code. And they have decided to push towards a peer-to-peer networking system.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something I would disagree with.
Yes.
I think that the worldwide infrastructure hasn't caught up enough to make it viable yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
The interesting thing for those bringing up Elite Dangerous is that when Elite Dangerous made their decision, I would have been on the side of peer-to-peer. They made the right decision at the time. It is not their fault that worldwide infrastructure hasn't moved forward at the rate predicted then. Yeah,
Okay.
that is outside of their control.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm very specifically not talking about Elite Dangerous here. I'm talking about a game now,
Yeah.
not then. So, with the knowledge of Elite Dangerous, I would use that information to show that it isn't scalable at this point, and that the way that the infrastructure has moved forward over the years, it doesn't look like it's going to be scalable in the next decade. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I would bring that information forward and go, this is what I would like to see. I would prefer you to move towards a dedicated server model. And I think if you poll your fan base and explain this situation, you'll find that we would be happy to support a dedicated server model through some kind of financial model, whether it be a light subscription, whatever. Yeah. Whether it be aesthetic microtransactions, however you want to do that, we as a community are almost certainly going to be happy to pay for that for a smoother server experience.
Sure.
And also, having it all done server side leaves it less susceptible to cheating, all of that sort of thing. Yep.
Okay. Never
so
mentioned a person throughout the entire process. Yeah.
No, and it would be that would be the information I would point out, and that I would try and bring support behind that point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because being blunt, I think it's a completely reasonable point of view, and I think it's a completely valid point of view. And if you can get weight behind it, people will listen. Now, it may be that you get the other side come back to you with equally valid and equally good points that counter you. And you need to take those into account. And sometimes the equally valid and the opposite point may just be money.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious. Yeah. It's still like Star Citizen is in such a weird place to give feedback to, because everything is still up in the air. It's so hard. And not the only feedback I feel like I can give are through my experiences in gaming. And like for example, like the example you gave, it ties into having knowledge in like other things on the outside, like infrastructure, right? But when it comes down to a lot of the things that I get frustrated with, it's like I'll use a Star Citizen example where they want to go to this like non-player run economy. And I have like my concerns with it now, hearing more about it and then playing other games with player run economies. And I just wonder, like, am I going to be floating around in this world that they created where I'm not really impacting it, not being a part of it, all these things? And that's like my main worry about the game.
Yeah, was it 90% to 10% their plan?
Yeah. 9 NPCs for every 1 player is what they said. That's not necessarily how it'll be, but in general, in the back end behind the scenes, there's going to be a simulation that's running the economy, and it's going to be a bunch of little dots that are NPC players that are looking all around the world and have information on what's going on, the same information that we have, and some of them will be miners, some of them will be cargo haulers, some of them will be bounty hunters, they'll have some of them will be pirates, and they'll all be going about their day doing the things that they do, and that's what would impact the economy, and then we would be living in that world. And it's very different from most games.
Yeah. It sounds quite similar to Elite's economy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, a lot of people have described it as that.
Now, the one thing I'll say there is you can absolutely destroy Elite's economy with group activity. What that sounds to me like they are trying to do with that is perhaps trying to push towards making you guys work as groups rather than individuals.
Yeah, but even then, we're unsure if we're going to have an impact on the economy, and I don't know if they've ever discussed it too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting, but I don't know.
Although going the other way, you don't want Star Citizen to become Eve.
I'm unsure. Because I took that 10 years off between Ultima Online essentially and then coming to like streaming and playing all sorts of different games. Yeah. I thought what drew me to Star Citizen was that it wasn't Eve, because Ultima Online had its issues with player run economies, and other games that I played did as well. And I thought it was the right idea. But then when you look at the longevity of a game like Eve, or you look at other games that have player run economies, it just feels right to me, and I'm not sure if I like the other side as much anymore.
Yeah. So the issue with going down the way Eve has with the economy for Star Citizen is multifold. First of all, in that it relies on a long-term consistent player base in order to make the game enjoyable. And that's not necessarily best. It also means that it introduces whole worlds of problems. Like, Eve have to hire the people who make Eve. They have economists on staff.
Yeah,
They have to hire economists to run their fake economy. Yeah, it is not it's not easy. And it's not. It brings up a whole world of other problems for both the makers and the players. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to your first point, I think if your multiplayer game, like I think most multiplayer games should have to be experienced in a good way with other people. I think a lot of people like to play games solo, and I worry that that's a place that Star Citizen is going to. Everybody, for the most part, plays solo now, and that's like tying it all the way back to this topic is feedback is probably being based off of that experience. Anytime I mention multi-crewing and how essential I feel it should be, I get more comments than ever about, I just want to play this game solo. And I'm just like, well, I don't know if this is like necessarily the game for you then. But
it can be.
It can be, but they want, based on the comments I've read, it's like they want everything, and they don't want to be locked out of anything. And it's just like, that's not realistic to me. In a multiplayer experience, part of it has to be multiplayer. Like, sorry, dude.
Yeah, it should be something. It should be something where
you
the
can
way that
do
I
everything,
look at things,
but it's improved by being with others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And story beats, certainly, if they have them, and I don't know what they're planning on doing with that. Those should be accessible to any and all. You know.
That's true.
But yes, there's going to be stuff that is better with other people, and that's just the way of it. But on the other side of that, those that want a single player experience are going to get it with Squadron 42. So
exactly. Yep.
There's that. You know.
Yeah, 100%.
Alongside that, one of the things that I hope they look into as they get closer to a proper release is giving groups within the game tools within the game to contact new players. Methods of advertising player groups that have certain community feels and that sort of thing to new players as they arrive into the game.
Sure.
And help them find those groups, because that as well is an incredibly important part of any multiplayer game experience, right?
Yeah.
Finding people to play it with.
Yeah.
A weird question for you. Have you ever played Pulsar Lost Colony?
Yes. And I'm thinking about playing it again shortly.
Oh, really? Let me know.
We've
been playing it loads lately.
I don't know. I haven't played it for probably 5 years.
It released into 1.0. It's a finished game.
Oh, shit. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'll definitely jump in there.
There's a full story now.
Have you ever played Barotrauma?
I haven't. People keep telling me because of Pulsar that I should play Barotrauma.
Barotrauma is like a insane version of what I experienced in Pulsar, at least way back.
Yeah.
So,
But
yeah.
Pulsar for me is what I want from from multi-crew in any game like Eve or Elite or Star Citizen.
Even 5 years ago, whenever the last time I played it, I agree with that statement.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
For those that don't know, very brief summary: Pulsar is a game where 5 of you work together as the crew of a ship. You have a pilot, a captain, an engineer, a science officer, and a weapons officer.
Mm-hmm.
Each of them has unique skill trees that they can put points into as the crew levels up. And you can change the loadout of the ship, put different weapons on it, different shields, all of that sort of thing, upgrade them as you go along.
And then there's like a story.
And it's a really weird little indie game that almost no one's ever heard of.
Yep.
But it shows what multi-crew in any game like this should be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I'm going to play it sooner now that I know it's 1.0. It's been on my list of things to do with friends for sure.
There's even a secondary mode in the game now.
Okay.
Where it's a 2-hour-long playtime.
Like a little story, a little 2-hour story?
Yeah, little 2-hour-long, unique little game mode story and it's designed, like you basically have to upgrade your ship as much as possible to fight a boss in 2 hours.
Oh, okay, cool. Is it any good if you have no friends? No, I don't think so, right? It's completely needed with friends.
Yeah,
but
you need people.
So, DJ, I would say we would probably be coming to the end now because I got a text from the wife. She was like, "When are you going to be done?" So, I'll probably call it somewhere around here. But I first want to say, I appreciate it so much. The perspective of somebody whose part of their job is to gather feedback is monumental with something like this. Obviously, I'm a massive fan of Stellaris too, so it's like always fun to talk Stellaris and talk to people who know so much more about it than I do. I appreciate it. But if there's anything else that really sticks out to you or anything else that you wanted to mention before I head off.
No, I again, the main one I will say is, and I know how hard it can be. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
Be polite. You'll be amazed how far it gets you.
Yeah. If you truly care, I feel like some people have lost the ability to care and are just want to be destructive at this point. But even like Breezer, I know he cares, and like the person who we got into a little spat on today's show, he cares. I know he does, and his frustration comes from a place that's like totally valid.
Yep.
But it's not going to get anywhere. If it's not gonna change anything. Again, you'll feel good in the moment for a little bit, but it's not gonna change the problems with the game. And the only way to change is to get to the people who can change it. So, yeah.
No, again, thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Anytime, man. And I'm also so looking forward to Overlords.
I was about to, don't worry, I'll be in touch for Overlord.
Oh yeah, no problem. I like sometimes I just buy it anyway because I love support. Why not? All right, I'll message you.
Yeah, just, I got you.
All right, bro. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll talk soon. And I know we were going to plan a multiplayer game for Stellaris, but I said, let's wait for Overlord because it'll make a lot more sense for us because there's some players that are better than others, and the way Overlords works, it seems like it makes so much more sense in that way, where if somebody did take over your empire, that they have a chance to continue to play the game, whereas before it felt like we weren't able to. It was over at that point.
Some of the bonuses you get for being a vassal now are actually downright scary.
Yeah, it does look scary. Like, I watch Montu plays on YouTube every day, basically, and I think it's probably A-Spec, but I can't remember, and others, about their, they've been watching the diaries and what they think and what some builds might be kind of crazy, and I was like, oh, wow, they have some wild ideas.
As an example, someone was asking how valuable your feedback is. Like, I think they were being a bit facetious, but they asked it earlier. As an example of that, Montu and I talk probably every 3 days or so.
You mean my feedback, like?
Yeah. To me, like one of the roles that I do is I garner feedback from community leaders, content creators are amongst those.
I talked to our community manager now, I would say. His name is Jake. I talk to him on a daily basis, and sometimes I'm venting to him about something, and he's telling me, that's valid, or hey, maybe look at it this way, or we're talking about literal bugs in the game. It's different every day. And but yeah, in a very similar way, I talk to him every day, and that is the thing that has changed with him specifically, and with a lot of these new things that have happened this year. I've spoken to other community managers and one developer from that experience team more recently as well. So like those are things that this has actively been changing in the last few months and 6 months or so, and I think we're going to start seeing the changes in game, and I think we're already starting to with 3.17. Is you're starting to see a lot of quality of life things be prioritized because of that.
Yeah.
So it's actually working.
And one thing I'll quickly say before we finish, Moriel the Chosen has just said, yes, but this communication has issues as well. There's a reason why Eve has a community council. Agreed entirely. It can't just be content creators. That's really important. And I don't just speak to content creators. It's people who run large Discords, people who run roleplay groups, multiplayer competitive groups.
Yep.
There's a whole spectrum of people that I speak to on a regular basis to gain an overall sort of top level view of what their communities are all thinking. And the moment that you start hearing similar things from different communities is when you know got
it's
something
real.
really important.
Yeah. And I think that's like people mentioned Tarkov earlier, and Nikita from Tarkov, like going on podcasts and stuff like that all the time. I think that's like the positive side, but also that exactly what he said is that has its issues, and I think that is an issue with them as well, as they feel. I think community members from Tarkov, sometimes I've heard them complain, feeling like streamers have too much of a voice, and I worry about that as well, and I try not to be that way, but it's hard because you just want the game to be good. Everybody wants the game to be good. We just happen to have a platform which is different than most people,
Yeah.
But all right, dude, that was super fun. I'm super excited for Stellaris, and I'm super excited to take what I've learned over the recent weeks, and more importantly today, and hopefully having somewhat of an impact in a place where I'm not sure I can make an impact yet, but when bigger features come in, I think knowing what to do and how to do it as far as feedback goes is going to be really important for this game going forward. So, DJ, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to let you go, and then I'll say my outro, I guess, for the show. But again, I appreciate it so much, your perspective and everything. It was awesome.
You're more than welcome. Have a lovely day, and happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you. Have a good one.
See you soon.
Bye-bye. So that'll do it, guys. A Answer the Call in the books that went all sorts of different directions today, but always kind of loop back to, is our feedback even valuable? I think it is, and I think it isn't. I think it's in a weird place right now where we don't have a finished game, and it's tough, but I think if we learned anything, it could be valuable if we do it the right way. And yeah, we'll have to see. And yeah, DJ, thanks for coming on, man. That was awesome. And yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. The classic, like if you're watching on Twitch and you didn't catch the whole show, it was long. The recording's 2.5 hours, so this is one of our longest podcasts. It will be up on YouTube later today. If you're watching on YouTube and you'd ever like to be a part of one of these call-in shows, we do them Sunday mornings, anywhere between 7:30, 8 a.m. Eastern time to 10 a.m. Eastern time they start. It just depends on the reception of the topic. I'm not going to set a date anymore, or a time anymore, because there's times where there's a ton of people that are interested in the topic and want to talk about it right now, and why not just have a show? Yeah, so I think that's how I'm going to go about it now. If we get a bunch of people in that are excited about it, then we're good. you know. But yeah, what a content-filled podcast. That was wild today. That went everywhere, which was awesome. So thanks for watching. Thanks for taking part. Virgil, Reezer, Slothinator, DJ. That was great. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time.